And welcome to the May 12th, is it? May 12th Board of County Commissioner Workshop. And these are our budget items. For today, we have a lot to cover. But before we get into it, I would like to announce about our community conversation that's coming up on May 20th. The public meeting will take place on Wednesday, May 20th, from 6 to 7 p.m. at St. Pete College at the Seminole campus, right at the Partnership Center Digitorium at 9200 113th Street North in Seminole. From 5:30 to 6 p.m., you're going to be able to meet the county commissioners one-on-one, along with our county administrator, Mark Woodard. And then from 6 to 7, there will be a live public meeting, and you'll be able to either ask us questions right there, or there's going to be a blog set up that morning at 9 a.m. online, and you'll be able to put your questions on there if you're not able to attend. You can call. The phone number is 1-888-409-5380. Let me give you that again. 888-409-5380. Or you can watch it on Pinellas County Station on 637 Bright House or at 636 on the St. Petersburg College channel. Okay? And with that, we'll start off, Mr. Woodard, with number 1.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
Good morning.
This is the second in a series of budget information sessions, as the Chairman indicated. We're going to start off with our justice community, and as we have done in the past, we will launch that with a discussion of the Article 5 provisions and what that means to your annual budget. We're fortunate to have Chief Judge McGrady here with us this morning, as well as other members of the justice community. So we'll go through that series of presentations first, then we'll move to the other constitutional officers, including the supervisor of elections, the tax collector, the property appraiser, and the clerk. And then we'll end today with the Pinellas Planning Council, and then Creative Pinellas, your local arts agency.
Okay. Let me just say, so folks know where we're going to be going here. There's 10 items on here, depending on how far we get by 12:30. If there's only 1 or 2 items, we'll try to just go through lunch and end it at 1 o'clock. But if we see that there's 2 or 3 items at noon that we have to get through the whole thing, we'll probably break for lunch. Okay? So with that, we'll start with number 1, Article 5. Don Mello. Good morning, Don.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How is everyone? Good. This morning I plan to give a quick presentation to provide an overview of the county's court support funding. Hopefully this overview will help the board and the public better understand the presentations by the judiciary, public defender, and the state attorney's office. Article 5, Revision 7 of the state constitution redefined the responsibilities of both the state and the county for funding the court system. Article 5 was implemented beginning in July 2005. Article 5 identified the county's responsibilities to include funding of the court technologies, facilities, and security, as well as a number of local options. There are some court fees that are designated as revenues to help offset these costs. Unfortunately, the costs of our obligations far outweigh the revenue we receive. The total negative impact to the general fund is $31.6 million in fiscal year 2015. We'll be using the current year budget numbers for this presentation. In the next few slides, I'll go into detail behind that number. The county's court costs for supporting the court system are budgeted across a number of agencies in a general fund. In addition to the support included in the judiciary, state attorney, and public defender's budget, significant court-related costs also appear in the budgets of the sheriff, real estate management, and justice and consumer services, among others. In July 2014, the CCMS project was live and running. In December 2014, use of the former CJIS system stopped and went offline in January 2015. Today we're going to look at court support activities in terms of the amount of flexibility the county has in budgeting or spending for them. The first category represents those services that the county is required to provide by law. The second category includes optional services that have defined revenue streams associated with them. The third category includes other local options such as court innovations. Finally, the fourth category includes court-related programs that are funded by the county. Required county functions can be characterized as relating to either facilities and operations and maintenance, technology and communications, technology system projects, and other mandates. There are two major expenditures for facility operations and maintenance. Court security, which is the cost of the bailiffs provided by the sheriff, and the operation of the physical facilities, including repair and maintenance, and utility costs for the courthouses and related buildings. The county receives some revenue to support these costs from a $30 facilities fee, but as you can see, this falls short of the total cost. In fiscal year 2015, the net cost to provide court facilities is just under $18 million. The county is also legally required to provide ongoing computer and communication technology support for the court agencies. That includes the Consolidated Case Management System, or CCMS. The county receives some revenue from a $2 recording fee, but as with the facilities, this revenue is not sufficient to fund the requirements. In fiscal year 2015, the net cost for the ongoing technology and communication operation is $6.3 million. Currently, the county is engaged in a project to replace a portion of the Justice e-filing and Document 360 systems. This will integrate the existing document management system within a Consolidated Case Management System, or CCMS. In fiscal year 2015, the budget includes $1.6 million for this project. Since the ongoing technology costs exceed the technology revenue from the recording fees, there is no dedicated revenues for this purpose, and the entire $1.6 million must be funded from the county general revenues. There are several other state-mandated expenditures that are related to the court system. The county is billed by the state for juvenile detention costs. The fiscal year 2015 expense is $3.5 million, which is budgeted in the Department of Justice and Consumer Services. The actual expenses will be less than budgeted, but we are showing the full amount here to be consistent with the original approved budget numbers. As you may recall, there has been some litigation in connection with the state billing. A recent ruling was issued a few weeks ago and is being reviewed. There are also mandated costs of about $124,000 for alternative sanctions coordinator and a guardianship monitor position in the judiciary budget. The total cost of these other required functions is $3.6 million, coming from general revenues. In summary, the court-related functions that the county is required to provide by law is a net cost of $29.4 million. That must come from county general revenues.
I like the 2.9 better.
Sorry. Hopeful thinking. It is important to note that the state Article 5 related statute imposes a maintenance of effort requirement on a significant part of the county's support of these required functions. This mandate applies to several major elements, including facilities and technology. The statute generally requires expenditures to increase at least 1.5% per year. Although there are some exceptions, the legislature has approved continuing the waiver of this mandate for fiscal year 2015, and it is expected to pass again for 2016. The second functional category includes several optional services that are largely supported by dedicated revenue sources. These functions are behavior evaluation, teen court and juvenile arbitration, the law library, and legal aid. The behavioral evaluation program is in the judiciary budget and is entirely supported by grant revenue from the Juvenile Welfare Board. The teen court and juvenile arbitration programs are in the judiciary budget and have two dedicated funding sources, a $3 delinquency case fee and a portion of the $65 court fee. The $65 court fee revenue is split into 4 dedicated categories: juvenile alternatives, legal aid, law libraries, and court innovations. The law library is part of the judicial budget and is almost entirely supported by its share of the $65 fee and a small amount of revenue from copying charges. The county spends more on legal aid than the $65 fee generates. Legal aid is budgeted in the Justice and Consumer Services Department. Altogether, there is essentially very little cost to the county general revenues for expenses related to this category of local options. The third category includes court innovations and other local options. These programs include the drug court, court counsel, administrative assistance, and domestic violence prevention. The recurring source of revenue for these programs is the $65 court fee dedicated to court innovations. In fiscal year 2015, there are also grants to support the Domestic Violence Prevention Initiative and some drug court expenses. The other source of funding here is the accumulated carry-forward costs from prior years, or unused $65 court fees, which become available for court innovations. As you can see, that is only $41,000 for this year. The net cost of the county general revenues for these programs is around $893,000 for ongoing drug court expenses that are budgeted in Justice and Consumer Services. The other programs are covered by the revenue sources listed here. The net cost of the county general revenues, again, as you can see, is just under $900,000. The fourth category of court-related expenditures includes several non-mandated programs that do not have defined revenue streams to support them, except for occasional grants. These programs are jail diversion, the Incompetent to Proceed, and the SSI Outreach Access and Recovery Program, also known as SOAR. The jail diversion and Incompetent to Proceed programs are included in the public defender's budget. In recent years, the public defender has successfully pursued supplemental grant funding for jail diversion. These grants are not a guaranteed recurring source, and they are subject to availability and approval by federal and state agencies. Also in this category is the cost of providing office space and other expenses for guardian ad litem programs. This is primarily budgeted in the real estate management department. The net cost to the county general revenues for other court-related programs is just over $1 million. To summarize, in this presentation, we've reviewed the county court support activities in 4 categories that reflect the amount of budget flexibility: required county functions, local options with defined revenue streams, court innovations and local options, and other court-related programs. The total cost for county general revenue required to support these court-related functions is $31.6 million. Of that total, only about $1.9 million is subject to unrestricted discretionary decisions by the board. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, please.
Anybody have any questions for Don? Commissioner Seal?
Bottom line, what is the change from last year or this year?
Actually, we remained very flat, and it was 31.6 last year, too.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Any predictions on the juvenile justice costs?
Predictions on juvenile justice costs?
The DJJ costs that are a unfunded mandate from the state, since I'm on TV.
I'll try to
in the
jump
courts
in there, Commissioner. It is probably going to be part of the budget call when they reconvene
Special session.
the special session. And right now they're looking at we are still pushing very hard for a 50-50 split. But right now the discussion is not that favorable. So we're probably looking like 30-70 or 40-60 split. So none of it favorable to the county. But we still, as you mentioned, we've prevailed on every one of our cases. We've got some significant wins under our belt, but all of that is not me pushing the effort forward right now.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Anyone else?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right, well, thank you, Don. I'm going to ask after every presentation, are there any cards, Kevin, for number one? No. Okay. Number two, state attorney. I know that Bernie's not here today, but my former Feather Sounder neighbor, Don Nelson, is here to pitch it for the boss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great to see you.
It was great to see you, too. I'm Don Nelson for the State Attorney's Office. As Commissioner Maroney said, Bernie is not here. He is on his way right now to Athens. He normally likes to make this presentation, but he asked me to do it in his stead. I'll be short because our request is very small today. In fact, it's probably the smallest one that you'll see today. As usual, we're only requesting that which is required by statute. Our total request this year of $255,990 reflects a 4.7% decrease from last year.
Oh.
Our budget request fluctuations are primarily due to the equipment replacement schedules that we deal with. We do like to point out that every year we pay the county more than $52,000 in child welfare, legal service, rent, and telephones, and we do prosecute all county ordinance violations free of charge. On behalf of Bernie, it's always a pleasure dealing with the Pinellas County Commission. Thank you.
Well,
He told you to say that, didn't he?
I asked him what he wanted me to say. He said, I don't care.
that sounds more like it.
Any questions for Don number two? Okay, Commissioner Long.
Don number two. I'm curious about what you're doing for your staff this year, because in the past I've heard from a lot of the state attorneys how underfunded they are with their payroll.
We are. The state has been very, very sparse with pay raises for individuals. And what we're able to do is by holding positions vacant, we're able to do some small increases. We currently have more than 60 vacant positions in the state attorney's office.
60?
Yeah. Follow up,
Sure.
Mr. Chair. With 60 vacant positions, I'm assuming, I could be wrong, that your workload has not gone down.
No, it hasn't, but it's also not gone up. Everything's pretty flat right now.
So, given that you have, how many attorneys do you have over there?
Ooh, that's, we have in the neighborhood of 170.
170.
Yes.
And currently there are 60 vacancies.
Right. Now, those vacancies are for all staff, including support staff to the attorneys.
Okay, and the staff isn't feeling overloaded?
I hope not. I hope not.
Okay. Just curious, because I do get a lot of those kind of comments.
Well, and we
about the
appreciate your
state
concern. We
attorney's
really do.
office. Thank you.
Anyone else? No? All right, Don, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty. Kevin, any cards? No. Okay, number three, the judiciary, and that's going to be done by Chief Judge McGrady. Great seeing you 2 days in a row.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I'm going to try to make it brief. And first of all, I want to thank the county for all the support they've given the judiciary over the years. And I'll flip through some of these slides and hit a few highlights for you as we go along. All right, we have 39 county-funded employees in the court system. Right now, we're not requesting any additional FTEs. In fact, we have defunded 2 positions because the funding wasn't there to support them. So this is our request in total of $4,091,310. This is a reduction of about $104,000, about 2% from last year. But the devil's always in the details. We'll talk about that in a minute. And this just kind of gives a detail of how our various employees are required as far as their funding stream. Many are statutorily required, constitutionally required, or are part of grants. Technology is a big portion of our budget. Again, that's statutorily required. 70% of that funding for that comes from the $2 recording fee. And then we have other statutory requirements, including the guardianship monitor, which by definition monitors various guardianships that are in the court system. And the alternative sanctions coordinator helps us with juveniles in trying to find other methods of sanctioning them without necessarily having them out at JDC. And then we have juvenile diversion. And this is a real important program. I know you've read a lot, heard a lot about the legislatures now trying to get a kind of a statewide system of this juvenile diversion. We've been doing it since 1979. And it is really a very successful program the way we run it. Last year we had over 3,000 youthful offenders as part of this program. We have a success rate of between 85 and 90% with a recidivism rate of around 6 to 9%. Our cost is about $150 per juvenile compared to the cost of $326 a day at JDC. So this is a huge cost saver, regardless of who's going to be paying for JDC. We've been doing this for a long time. It's a very successful program, and the rest of the state ought to get on board with the way we're doing it. We also have behavior evaluation, which helps our unified family court judges making decisions regarding various matters, helps with substance abuse and other needs. It is primarily funded through a grant from the Juvenile Welfare Board. There is a small amount that comes out of you all, because the grant requires some matching funds in order to get it. Our court innovations budget, which is where you all come in probably the most of any of our budget items, includes our drug court, which is without a doubt one of our most successful programs that we have. There is many citizens, hundreds if not thousands of citizens in our county who have successfully completed the drug court and who have gone on to becoming productive citizens and whose lives have been saved. And it's money well spent. Judge Farnell runs that court primarily and is doing a great job. Within our drug court, we also have a veterans treatment court, and we have a prison diversion court. The idea being, if it's a nonviolent criminal and they don't score a lot of points, rather than sending them to prison, we kind of divert them through drug court and hopefully get them treatment as opposed to incarceration. So part of this comes out of the $65 fee. And the law library is pretty much self-sustaining, also part of the $65 fee. So overview of the budget, again, how we get to the $4,091,000. And kind of how it's all divided up in various ways. Again, a 2% reduction. The total amount of fees that we estimate will be generated coming up $2,852,000. Unfortunately, that has generally gone down over the years, which may be a good thing and which is a bad thing. I don't know. But it's always good if we have less cases. Mm-hmm. But the revenue is nice to help pay for how we get there. All right. So the budget summary. The $4 million is there. So even though our budget is over 100,000 less than last year, the actual cost to you all is about $300,000 more because of the lack of revenue. The reduction in revenue has caused more to come out of your general fund. And that's pretty much it. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for the Chief Judge? Judge, let them, I don't see any questions, but you might want to let them know what's happening on July 1st.
Well, yeah, I did want to thank you for the great relationship we've had for the last 6 years, and I've truly enjoyed working with the commission, and I stepped down as of July 1st as Chief Judge, and Judge Tony Rondolino will take over, and I'm sure he'll do a great job, but I want to thank you all for my time with you all.
We want to thank you for working with us so well over those 6 years. It's been a real pleasure.
And I would just like to add, Mr. Chairman, to thank the judge for your leadership on the CJIS project, which was a huge project. I knew that probably, wore down on you as the leader of that group. But that was a vital project for the county, replaced a 30-year system.
It's very vital
it's known
for
around the
us,
state
too.
as a very unique system that serves the needs of the courts and all the partners. So thank you for your leadership on that.
Yeah, thank you all for your support on that, because we really needed that. I know you needed it, but we needed it, too.
Chief, hold on. Commissioner Seal?
And I just want to echo the comments made. Thank you for your calm demeanor and the steady hand at the steering wheel, and we really appreciate all that you've done in guiding the court system and working with the county commission, and you've done a terrific job. Thank
It's been a great relationship. It really has. It really
Yeah,
has.
I know the Times had a nice editorial about me, which, don't believe everything you read.
Well, yes, Commissioner Long.
Chief Judge, I want to thank you again for the work that you've done on the drug court. I just have been to some of those graduations from it, and the impact you're having on the lives of those young people, it just cannot say enough for how much I am grateful, number one. And number two, congratulations on the award you received last Friday. That was neat.
Thank you.
Oh, what was that?
He was recognized by his colleagues and peers at the bar lunch.
Clearwater Bar.
Yeah.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank
all.
you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
We're going to miss you.
No cards on number 3. Okay. All right, number 4, our public defender, Bob Dillinger. And we were in a meeting together yesterday along with the chief judge, and he's got some news about a grant that we received last year.
Again, Bob Dillinger, Public Defender, wanted to thank again the county for its support. Our request this year is $92,690 less than last year's, so I assume that's not an issue. But I did want to talk a little bit about some of the programs that you all have funded, and we're unique around the state. Jail diversion, as of yesterday, had diverted 5,262 mentally ill people from the Pinellas County Jail since 2004. It's a very successful program. While the legislature this year spent a lot of time on mental health bills, a lot of mental health bills, they did no funding for mental health. And then all the bills died, realistically. But we're way ahead of the curve. The jail population is down. I think we have something to do with that, not everything to do with that. The other part that I want to talk about, last year we came before you for a SOAR person. And SOAR is a person who does Social Security benefits for our clients. I have some statistics, and I'll share those with those. A SOAR program has a 65% overall rate approval in an average of 94 days. What's significant with that is that when people who are entitled to benefits apply for Social Security benefits, like SSDI, things of that nature, SSI, they're almost always denied. The first round, the first tier is denied, and you have to take an appeal. And that can last from 1 to 3 years. During that time, the person may not have any income. They may end up in the county jail. With the SOAR program, you basically skip Tier 1 and you go immediately to Tier 2, and that's why you can get your benefits in under 90 days. So people who are either coming out of the jail diversion program or coming out of jail can have some benefits that allow them to live without being a drain on society. So it took a little while to get it going because we were relying on the HLB to spread the word and get the employee. When that didn't work out, we went out on our own, found a person, and hired them, and it's going full speed now. So I wanted, again, to thank you for that. Our jail diversion, we have master's level therapists. We have the doctors. We have medication. We worked with the Pinellas Housing Authority. We have a 10-unit apartment building that is full of people who graduate from jail diversion who have a job, can go live there until they go and get another apartment. That's full at the moment. So we're able to provide services to people who need those services. And I couldn't do it without the help of the county. And I'm very appreciative of it. Our staff's very appreciative of it. And the clients are very appreciative of it. So, again, I want to thank you. And if there's any questions, I think the SOAR person is going to really help move people out of the system. So that was from y'all, and it's working. It's functioning the way it's supposed to function.
Good. Y'all done?
I'm all done.
Okay. Any questions for Bob? Sure. Commissioner Welch.
I just want to thank you for your leadership, both in Pinellas County and Pasco, but around the state. What you're doing in diversion is exemplary, and we say this every year, but it's worth saying again. You gave us some stats. You said 65% approval. What was the approval?
65% approval rate and an average of 94 days in 2014. That's nationwide.
So the people that apply for those benefits, 65% are successful
within 94 days.
Okay.
Miami-Dade, which is where we went for our training, they're doing it in 60 days. So we've been working with them. If people have been dealing with trying to get SSI or SSDI, you know how long it can take to get. When I first heard this, I thought people were making it up. It turns out to be true. There's a certain way you need to do it, but if you do it the right way, it works. And that's what we're trying to do.
Well, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Everybody's thanking you very much.
We're grateful.
Yeah, well, another great relationship that we've had with the public defender over the years, and it's great working with you, Bob. Thank you. And I know we don't have any cards for that one either, Kevin. Okay. Next is Supervisor of Elections. Julie's here for Deborah Clark. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you all, too. Thank you.
It's Gator Blue.
Yeah.
Please.
Oh, I can always count on you. Thank you.
Yes.
Chairman Maroney, Commissioners, thank you for having us here today. If I may, I'd like to take a moment to just introduce staff who's with me today. We have Jason Latimer, our Communications Director. Mark Gillette, our IT Administrator, and Dawn Ricketts, our Finance Manager. And although she's not technically on staff, Jewel White, the Chief Assistant County Attorney, is a part of our election team. Jewel serves as the County Attorney for the Supervisor of Elections and also serves as the Attorney for the Canvassing Board. And while we're on the subject of the Canvassing Board, I'd just like to take a moment and thank those who have had the opportunity to serve on the Canvassing Board. You have no idea how much we appreciate that. The Canvassing Board plays a significant role in the election process, and your responsibilities are great. And knowing that each of you sincerely cares about the process and that you're willing to step up and take the time to be a part of that team is very much appreciated. And Mark Woodard and Bill, and I'm not sure if I see Helen, but with OMB, thank you for all that you do. You're all approachable. Your willingness to go the extra mile is always helpful, especially when we have to navigate through this process. So thank you for that. Okay, onward. Our base budget target was $6,973,700. Our proposed base budget is $6,968,001, which is $5,690 under target. We have submitted a proposed total budget of $7,778,633, which includes $581,132 of non-recurring funds to upgrade our voting equipment and $229,500 of non-recurring funds to purchase electronic poll books. In 2007, we were mandated by the Florida legislature to purchase an optical scan voting machine system. If you fast forward 8 years later, elections are much different. The biggest change is the number of voters who choose to vote by mail, and the equipment used to process those ballots needs to be upgraded in order for us to increase processing speeds and be able to meet legal deadlines. The requested upgrade consists of new high-speed scanners that are used to tabulate mail and provisional ballots, new hardware and software relating to the ballot tabulation system, and wireless modems for precinct ballot scanners. We want to take some time to walk through what this upgrade includes and why this upgrade is necessary. The upgrade includes new high-speed scanners, which will significantly increase our ability to process mail ballots. Because the new scanners process ballots continuously, we will be able to process on average 10,000 ballots per hour per scanner, as opposed to 1,500 ballots per hour per scanner with our current system. The discrepancy in the number of ballots per hour is because our current ballot system stops every time it sees a write-in, an overvote, a blank ballot, or a damaged ballot. This stoppage means that the operator has to remove the ballot from the scanner and place it in an outstack bin before resuming. To put this in perspective, during the 2012 general election, our scanner stopped over 17,000 times because of write-ins, overvotes, blank, and damaged ballots. With the new scanners, they do not stop for these reasons. The scanners automatically divert these ballots into configurable outstack trays, which means less manual intervention. The new ballot scanners also have an improved ballot transfer path. This keeps the ballots flat and less likely to jam and become damaged, which then have to be duplicated and processed, which if you served on the canvassing board, you certainly know what that's all about. We brought with us 2 videos that we would like to play that will provide the Commission with a visual of how our current ballot scanners operate and how our new scanners would operate. And we'll start with video 1, which is our current system, which are called the M650s. We used test decks that came from our District 64 special election, so just our last election, which included a write-in candidate, just to kind of give some sort of comparable as to what we dealt with in 2012.
Overvote. Write-in. Write-in. Overvote. Write-in.
So that's our current system, and the second video will be of the DS850, which comes with the new upgrade.
Whenever you're ready. Okay.
Are you trying to get the volume?
Yeah.
Wow. So those
Yeah, go ahead.
those ones going into the top tray are the ones that would be problematic in the current system?
Yes, ma'am, those are the outstacks. So where you saw in the first video where we had to stop and then David had to pick it up and put it in our makeshift outstack bins, it's automatically diverting those.
So follow up. Mr. Chair. So does that mean that those two people that were currently operating that machine, there doesn't need to be any human person on this machine at all?
No, we would have still an operator, but we wouldn't need an out-stack individual.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? I'm sorry.
Any other questions for Julie at this point? Commissioner Seal?
I noticed that you have a request for an additional person in your budget.
Yes. Yes, there's an additional full-time employee, and that is for our voter services department.
Or what?
Voter services department, so they handle voter registration, mail ballots, anything that has to do with voter services. Yes, ma'am.
So this investment in this new technology will not create one less staff person who doesn't need to be there?
No. This purely deals with how we tabulate our mail ballots, and then some of the things I'm about to talk about deal with what happens election night and what will happen post-election day. So the person that we included as part of our budget as a full-time position is somebody that would be responsible for all pre-election preparations, so processing applications, processing mail ballots requests, helping us balance mail ballots every night. Somebody that's in the voter services department that even during the course of a year is helping process initiative petitions, candidate petitions, voter registration applications, list maintenance, that kind of thing. But we will reduce, at some point, it will help us reduce casual staff, temporary staff that will help us election night when we tabulate, or during the 15 days when the canvassing board's allowed to process ballots.
Commissioner Jordan? Nothing? Commissioner Justice?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
You mentioned talking about the equipment that it would help speed up to meet statutory timelines. What has the legislature, some outside source, mandated our speeding up? Because it seems that we get our results pretty quick from you all to a great turnaround right now.
That's the problem. They haven't changed anything, and that's the problem. And later in the presentation, when we talk about post-election responsibilities and when we get into recounts, what hasn't changed are deadlines. So we have an increase on one end, but we don't have more time to do what we have to do post-election. So they haven't made changes.
Okay. I thought when you were saying that you needed it to speed up your results in order to meet those new deadlines. So
for post-election requirements, so when we're in possible recount mode.
So
I promise I'll get there. I promise.
Right.
It will all come full circle.
Very good.
Commissioner Welch?
Okay, I know you want to finish. Just on these scanners, you have $581,000 in the budget. How many scanners does that purchase?
It's 3 scanners. It includes 3 scanners.
And do you know offhand how old the scanners you have now are?
We've had them 8 years, but I'm not sure the technology is old. I mean, at least a decade, 2 decades old.
Well, the video
yes.
tells the tale. But
yes.
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank Commissioner Eggers, as I'm looking down this side of the dais, for serving on the canvassing board this year for me, being that I wasn't around during the election, and you'll be seeing him again for the November election,
It was fascinating. It was really interesting.
He loves being there, so.
Yeah. And
Well,
they made
special.
they made a
back.
special corner for me because I kept knocking drinks over. So it was not good.
And then they had to redo the ballot, all because of you.
But thank you for taking care of me there.
Thanks, Dave. Commissioner Long?
Yes, Julie, my question might be a bit premature. Maybe you're going to cover this as you move forward, but in this budget, do you have any budgetary requests to do online registration?
The online voter registration, the state legislature made an effective date of October 1, 2017. So if there are cost savings, it would be not in this budget year because it's something that can't be implemented yet until at a minimum October 1, 2017, but hopefully the governor signs the bill so there's even a chance that it can be. So, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No guarantee of that.
All right, Julie, continue.
Okay. In addition to the new ballot scanners, the upgrade also includes new server and workstation hardware. As you may be aware, it is Pinellas County standard to replace workstations about every 4 years. Our current workstation hardware and servers are 8 years old. and replacing our aging hardware and upgrading to Microsoft-supported Windows 7 will improve the functionality and reliability of our ballot tabulation system. This upgrade also includes the use of wireless modem technology in our precinct ballot scanners. Currently, our precinct scanners use antiquated analog phone lines to modem election results from polling places election night. Prior to each election, the phone lines are checked multiple times. However, we see modem failures because of the weather or because somebody mowed the lawn and killed one of the lines, or in a recent election, somebody stole the copper wire out of a phone box at the facility, so that polling place couldn't modem. A single failure can lead up to a 45-minute delay in our receiving election results and thus posting election results, because the USB stick from the ballot scanner has to be brought in for processing. Wireless modem technology will eliminate the installation, maintenance, and use of analog phone lines at the Election Service Center and at our 222 polling locations. And to speak to an area of cost savings, this is definitely, because again, we have to send folks out a couple times before the election, check those modem lines, we have to install them, we have to pay for those lines, so there's some cost savings here. In regard to the tabulation ballot system, the upgrade will take us from Unity Suite, which runs on a COBOL flat file database, to Electionware, which runs on a SQL database. The SQL database is far superior, as the COBOL database is decades old, which contains a single instance of data in a central location and provides advanced reporting functionality. So to bring this full circle, Commissioner, and to further point why this upgrade is necessary, we need to talk about mail ballot return statistics from previous elections and current post-election deadlines. If you look at the 2008 primary election, this was the first countywide election that we used our current voting system. In that election, we processed 36,414 mail ballots. In the comparable 2014 primary election, we processed 114,383 mail ballots. That is an increase of 214%.
So countywide, it was only 36,000.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was. We had a 12% turnout in that primary, which was odd because that was literally half than what it usually is.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure why.
Which primary?
2008 primary. In the 2008 presidential general election, we processed 184,137 mail ballots. And in the comparable 2012 presidential general election, we processed 248,668 mail ballots. And that's an increase of 35%. What hasn't increased since 2008 is the length of time between when we must certify the first set of unofficial results and when we have to certify the second set of unofficial results, which for a primary election could be a window of fewer than 48 hours. In a statewide election, all 67 counties are required to submit the first set of unofficial results with the Department of State. The state then must compile those results in order to determine if an automatic recount is required in a federal, state, or multi-county race. If so, the counties must wait for the Secretary of State, who has no statutory deadline, to order that recount. Both machine and manual recounts have to be completed by the same mandated deadline. And Florida state law says if a canvassing board does not certify the results of the recount prior to the deadline to submit the second set of unofficial results, the results of the recount cannot be included in the certified election results.
That's ridiculous.
It is prudent for us, as we make preparations for the 2016 presidential election cycle, to look at the increases in the number of mail ballots being returned, what is involved in preparing for and conducting a recount, along with the deadline to file those recount results, and ask ourselves if we had to conduct a countywide machine and manual recount, could we meet the statutory deadline? By upgrading our equipment, we put ourselves in a position to increase the speed and efficiency in which we process mail ballots. And this will provide us with the foundation necessary to support our voters who choose to vote by mail and meet our statutory deadlines. I don't know if you want to stop. That's the part on the upgrade.
Any
if there's any other
questions
questions
on that part?
Sure.
No, go ahead.
So if we were using 2012 numbers and you have the new equipment, it would take you 8 hours to do the counting all the mail ballots?
Yeah, so you
using
have...
three machines at 10,000 an hour?
Yeah, give me a second.
And that would meet your state?
Yeah, so with our new scanners, it would take us 10 hours to process what we did for that countywide election and 56 hours to process with our current system. And that's just standing there and those ballots going through. That's not what we have to do to prepare for a recount. A recount is an entirely separate election. You have to program the tabulation system to just recognize that race or races, because it's not guaranteed it's just going to be one recount. To recognize that race, you have to then proof that database. You have to make sure the precincts that are involved in that race are included in the tab system. You have to create test decks because you're required by state law to conduct a pre-logic and accuracy test prior to conducting the recount. That all has to be proved. Then you have to go through the process of starting the recount. You have to get it all going. And then you have post-election testing. So that's just literally putting scanners through the ballot. There's a whole process pre and a whole process post.
And I know this wouldn't save on the manpower part, but let's say we got down to the end of our budget and we said, man, we can't come up with 580. We could get you 2 scanners instead of 3, mm-hmm. and you could still use the old, would you still be able to use the old software, the old scanner?
No. The new system requires electionware, and electionware works in conjunction with those 3 scanners.
And would you be up and running then for this 16, or would be using these for municipals in 15? We will be using them this fall for the municipal elections and countywide in the presidential preference primary. Okay. And you're going to go into the poll books, or are you done with the poll books as well?
I got the poll books next.
Thanks.
Yay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I know that we all feel strongly, as stewards of taxpayers' dollars, that we should not ask for something until we need it. And in saying that, we purchased 700 electronic poll books so we could implement the new technology countywide in the 2014 primary election. We found that the electronic poll books worked extremely well for both our staff and for our voters. And in fiscal year 15, we purchased 43 additional electronic poll books.
Tell the public what a poll book is, please.
Electronic poll books, went back in the olden days, right? We used to have paper precinct registers. So you would go into your polling place, you would show them your picture and signature ID. The poll worker would look up your name, they'd flick through books, and they would find you, and you would sign. Basically, we've turn that into an electronic process. So now voters are able to walk into a polling place, and if they have their driver's license or Florida ID, we can scan that. It looks through our database, finds the voter, pulls them up. The voter signs a signature pad. They get a ballot ticket. It literally cuts the wait time, the check-in process by half. So it's a much more streamlined process. It eliminated many manual pre- and post-election responsibilities. We used to have to post to those precinct registers. So let's say, Commissioner Maroney, you voted by mail and you returned that mail ballot. After we printed those precinct registers, we would have to take a stamp and mark ballot returns so that you couldn't go into your polling place and try to vote again. Not that you would do that, but that's just an example.
We used to do that all the time. Only kidding.
And then post-election, what we would have to do is we would have to go through those precinct registers with little wands, and we would have to scan the barcodes next to everybody who had a signature so that we could give voter history credit to that voter for voting, where now it's a manual process, an automated process where it just uploads real time as people are voting during the day, which is really fun too, because up on our website you can see by precinct on election day how many voters are turning out at those polling places. So overall, the electronic poll books they save money, and they also help streamline the process on election days and during early voting to also help those voters too. So it's a great balancing act. We've got the convenience of voting by mail, but voters who still choose to vote early or at the polls on election day also have the convenience of using our electronic poll books so they can get in and out of there and still participate in the process.
Great. See, folks that vote by mail didn't see that, didn't see that new technology.
Yep.
So.
But voting by mail is still convenient.
Yeah, wonderful.
So going into what we're doing in 2016, you got to look at what's on the ballot. And we're going to have an open presidential seat. We could have medical marijuana again on the ballot. And we could have a number of county charter amendments that stemming from the review committee. And we need to have enough electronic poll books to meet the needs of those motivated early and election day voters, and ensure that we have the tools necessary to process those voters in a timely manner and avoid lengthy delays at our polling places. That is why we included in this budget non-reoccurring dollars of $229,500 to purchase 100 electronic poll books. As previously stated, we submitted a proposed base budget of $6,968,001, which is under budget. Our proposed base budget includes costs associated with conducting list maintenance, processing initiative and candidate petition signatures, candidate qualifying, conducting the 2016 presidential preference primary, the 2016 primary election, and preparations for the 2016 presidential general election. This November and December, we will conduct list maintenance of our voter registration database, which is required by Florida law. By conducting list maintenance, we are better able to keep our voter file current and accurate. This is beneficial for many reasons, including mailing ballots to the correct addresses, voters having correct polling place information on their voter information cards, and candidates and political committees and parties receiving correct current mailing address information. Going into 2016, we will see an increase in the number of initiative and candidate petition signatures that we will have to process. February 1st, 2016 is the deadline to submit the number of valid petitions signatures to the Department of State to determine if a proposed constitutional amendment is eligible to be placed on the 2016 general election ballot. For just the medical marijuana and the land conservation proposed amendments that were placed on the 2014 general election ballot, we verified over 181,000 petition signatures, 30,000 of which had to be verified in the 3 weeks prior to that February 1st, 2014 deadline. And leading up to the 2014 candidate petition deadlines, we processed over 15,000 candidate petition signatures. With 24 statewide initiative petitions that are currently circulating the state for 2016 general election ballot placement and 57 offices up for election in Pinellas County, we are anticipating at least that volume of activity in this upcoming year. During this past legislative session, the Florida legislature changed the presidential preference primary date to March 15th, 2016. So if you can believe it, the presidential election cycle is literally around the corner. We will be receiving the final list of presidential candidates from the Department of State in December, and we will be mailing ballots for the presidential preference primary to our military and overseas voters in January. For both the presidential preference primary and for the August 30th primary election, we will be conducting early voting at our 3 offices for 9 days, including the Sunday prior to the election, 8 hours per day. This is a total of 72 hours of early voting for each location. We will also be providing 12 remote ballot drop-off locations in addition to our 3 offices. Although the general election is being held during next budget year, there are costs associated with preparing for that election in this proposed budget. such as poll worker classes, which will begin at our 3 different training locations in the month of September. And now we're assembling more than 265,000 mail ballot kits in September so they can be ready to be mailed as required by statute the first week of October. We do want the Commission to know that we will include in our 2017 fiscal year proposed budget costs to provide early voting during the 2016 general election at our 3 offices and 2 remote early voting sites for 14 days, including the Sunday prior to the election, 12 hours per day. This is a total of 168 hours of early voting, which is the maximum number of hours permitted under Florida law. County candidate qualifying will also take place in 2016. There are 32 seats up at the county level. In addition, persons wanting to run for state and precinct committee men and women will also need to qualify in June. In 2012, we had over 350 people qualify for those seats. There is also a more robust campaign treasurer's reporting schedule, which includes monthly reports, and then in June, it starts on a bi-weekly schedule and then eventually a weekly schedule for both the primary and general elections. And there are also new campaign finance reporting requirements for those state and precinct committee men and women. So 2016, it has the markings of a very exciting election year. We are a very large state, and then we are a swing state with 29 electoral college votes, only behind that of California and Texas. Florida is going to be front and center. All eyes will be on us, and as always, everything that we do will be put under a microscope. Our voters will play a major role in nominating and electing the next president of the United States. Next year, voters will have the opportunity to cast votes for U.S. Senate, 3 congressional districts, along with state attorney, public defender, state Senate and state House districts, circuit and county judges, constitutional officers, Board of County Commissioners, school board, and special districts. Elections are what we do. We are committed to conducting elections accurately and with the utmost integrity. And we thank you for this opportunity to present our budget. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Julie, let me say thank you again for an unbelievable professional presentation. You very, very good.
Thank you.
Very good. I have 2 questions for you. One is that you had said that you had included in this request the preparations for the November 2016 election, right? So that will be in the next year's request for the November?
Yeah, so there's some preparations. So we have activities that will start in September because it's an election that takes months to get ready for, but we'll have poll worker classes, just to name a couple, poll worker classes, and then assembling those mail ballot kits. The postage and such will be in, because it won't go into the mail until October. Mm-hmm. But anything that happens from October 1, so that includes early voting, that includes election day, paying poll workers, all that will happen in our fiscal 2017 budget.
Because I saw that you had a line presidential preference primary, a little bit over $1 million, 1.1 million.
Yes.
So in the next request, it'll show the actual presidential election cost.
The general election.
The general cost.
Yeah, so what happened was, in last year's budget, we only had 1 countywide election, and then in this year's budget, it's 2 countywides, and the next year's budget will be 1, so it's just secular.
Okay.
So I think OMB and Mark Woodard worked with us, knowing that the presidential preference primary is something that we're mandated to do, and they rolled that into our base target, so we appreciate that.
Okay, the next question I have is on inactive registered voters. What is an inactive? How many times do they not vote?
So this is an inactive?
Inactive. You have 53,000 last year.
So an inactive voter is someone who we've mailed something to, whether it's a voter information card, a mail ballot, something that is not forwardable. It's required to be bounced back by the U.S. Postal Service as undeliverable.
Okay.
So it comes back to us as undeliverable, and that voter then, by statute, this is all required by statute, is put into an inactive status. because they haven't responded to any correspondence to try to get address updates. So we've sent them information asking them to confirm their address where they live. They haven't responded to that, so we have to put them into what they call inactive status. Also by Florida statute, if a voter then does not vote in 2 federal elections, general elections, then we are required by statute to then remove that voter from the voter rolls, and that voter would then need to
So it's 2 federal elections after the first return letter or return
Yeah, so
card
let's say today, or let's say that right before the general election, we mail you your mail ballot and it comes back as undeliverable. So then that's going to be that general election that is going to take place, and then another one, and then you're required by statute to
and that's
off the voter
over
rolls.
53,000 right now.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Mm-hmm. So we're very people move. It's even from one election to the next in an effort to save money. What we do prior to every election, before we mail our mail ballots, we do a national change of address run on our on those mail ballot addresses, and we get back. People move literally from a primary to general. You'll have thousands of people who have moved.
Wow.
And you have to Templaways. That's another big category in Pinellas County, because you have voters who live here for a period of time. They forget to tell us they're going back up to Connecticut to live for a couple months.
Well, you're doing a great job on that, even though the number is so high to me. Because in my campaign last year, out of the first class mail, I bet you I received like 20 letters back, and that was thousands of pieces of literature that went to a whole district of 250,000.
Yeah, and that's what's the benefit of list maintenance. It's not what it at times is dubbed as a purge. I mean, there's a process, but its main objective is to keep the voter roll current, so that you don't have folks who are deceased, people who've moved out of state, people who are no longer in Pinellas County, they live in Hillsborough. So it's you're maintaining the voter file, which again benefits the voters, it benefits the public, and it benefits our office because we are able to properly prepare for an election. We know how many poll workers we need, we know how many ballots we need, because we don't have 50,000 people who are on the active side that we then have to take into consideration.
Well, great job. That's great.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Going off of the chairman's question, so it would only be on a return of a mail ballot that they get on this list?
No, it would be any correspondence where it's not a forwardable piece of mail.
Well, I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out.
So
When would you?
Class mail, let's say we sent a letter to you because of some sort of issue, or we sent you a voter information card, or if we sent you a mail ballot. So it's any type of correspondence, with the exception of like a sample ballot, which we mail to households to an address. That's not going to be bounced back to us.
Okay. And we don't have permanent mail ballot voters now?
No, sir. A request is only good through 2 regularly scheduled general elections, which is good, too, because, again, it keeps folks with their current addresses so that we mail those to the proper locations.
And then a question on the poll books. We have 743 now, and you're looking to get 100 more. Yeah. And that's just maybe 1 per every 2 precincts to add on, or you'll add on based on the population in that precinct?
Yeah, so it's all based on how many voters are sent to that polling location, and we also take into consideration how many would turn out on election day, so we do take that into consideration. But if you look at the numbers, it would basically give us an average of 3 EVITs per location. You would never want to send to a polling place less than 2, because if you have a single point failure and it's 7:15 in the morning, that's not good. So you have to have 2. And then you have some locations that will have up to 5. Because you have some locations like Precinct 101, Pinellas Community Church, which has upwards, I think, of 9,000 voters. I mean, it's a huge facility. It can handle it. But you need to make sure you have enough electronic poll books.
And then on the mail ballots, in 2012, we had 248,000 mail ballots, you said, out of 459,000 votes cast in the presidential. I mean, what do you anticipate? What percentage of our vote in the 2016 will be mail versus actually showing up at the polling place like I still like to do with my neighbors.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, but basically what we're preparing for is still a 40 to 50% early voting and election day turnout, and so it's a balanced approach, Commissioner, that we want this upgrade so that we can process ballots because voters choose to vote by mail, and we can process them in a timely manner. We can meet the required deadlines, and we're also approaching it that we need to ensure that voters who still choose to vote at early voting sites and at the polls on election day are processed in a timely manner. And so it's basically equal treatment amongst all. It's a balanced approach. We want the convenience over here, but we also want it for our voters who choose to vote early and on election day.
And the 2 additional early voting sites, have they been designated, or you'll figure those out?
We've reserved the Palm Harbor the center of Palm Harbor, the old Pinellas Palm Harbor Community Center, and Gulfport, the location that we're at in 2014. Okay. So we have those locations reserved.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Anything? Commissioner Seal?
Nope.
No? Okay, Commissioner Welch.
Again, I want to echo the chair's comments on the great job you and Deb and all of your colleagues do. Just a couple points on the purge. I just want to commend you on the very logical approach that your office took to that. It just wasn't a random purge, or even some of the state-mandated purges which weren't accurate. You all have a very logical approach to that, so I just wanted to say that for the record. And the ballot drop-offs has worked off very well, and you had to swim upstream on that as well, working with the tax collector and others to keep that available in our county, so I commend you on that. If you would, at some point, I'd like for your technical person back there, I forgot your first name, sir. Mark. To can you just send us something on the wireless modem technology and the security on that? In case we get questions on it.
If I may,
Sure.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's important because I know people get concerned about its wireless and analog lines. What happens election night is very preliminary. It's a way to get results in a timely manner, be able to post those results, because we know that any delay in results makes people nervous, especially those of you up for election.
No, we can wait days. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
That's why Charlie had all those questions for next year.
But
I still remember counting at 49th Street with payphones. So.
Yeah. So what happens, though, with wireless, so we would modem wirelessly, but those USB sticks come back election night along with the paper ballots. So election night, the USB sticks come back, and we reprocess those USB sticks. So they're not anything, the results that are certified, that are a part of the official record, are not the results that were modemed. They're the results that were reprocessed election night. Okay. And I also would like to just mention that we have the paper ballots as the fallback. And the commissioners that have served on the canvassing board know that we have a manual post-election audit that's required. And what we do is we literally look at every ballot. We manually tabulate to ensure that what was counted on the system is actually what was is what we manually see. And every manual audit that we've conducted, not to our surprise, but every manual audit that we've conducted since having this system has turned out to be perfect. It's on point.
So you're just at the precinct, you're just using standard Wi-Fi?
Yeah, so it's a wireless modem, yep, and that goes into the actual DS 200, which are the scanners that we use right now at the polling places, would not change. The only thing that you would have is this new device in the back to allow us to hit a button and it goes, versus having to plug in a phone line. But it's just going over regular
Wi-Fi? It's not a secured?
It's a special tube.
Come on up, Mark.
It's a special tube from the precinct to the...
You're a Samsung guy. I don't listen.
I didn't hear Apple technology and all of that.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning. Mark, can you just say what your name is?
Mark Gillette, okay. IT Administrator for Supervisor of Elections Office. It will be using, we'll be using Verizon's wireless network.
Okay.
Just like your cell phone would be using or something like that. So that, it's a socket modem that would go into the DS200s, and that would wirelessly, through the Verizon wireless network, communicate that back to an SFTP server. And then our tabulation network would reach out to that SFTP server and grab those results and pull them back.
Okay, but as Julie said, it's just preliminary. The USBs are the
correct,
the Bible bit, so
correct.
to speak. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Long.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Julie, what happens if you send out the mail to purge your files, and you send it, and then it comes back to you as undeliverable, and then on election day, that person shows up and wants to vote, and they still have their same address? I mean, then what happens then?
Thank you. Great question. So what would happen if a voter wanted to vote, as an inactive voter wanted to vote by mail at an early voting site or on election day, they would simply need to just confirm their address with our office, and they would be able to cast a ballot in that election. So you're not off the rolls until you are literally off the rolls. So as long as you're active and inactive and you're eligible to vote in an election, you can participate. And for an inactive voter, it's just a matter of providing us with your current address, and it can be the address that we sent mail to and later came back undeliverable.
Okay, thank you. I thought that was important to clarify
ma'am.
for
Thank
the
you.
people listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, Julie, thank you very much. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Our best to Deborah. Kevin, nothing for number 5. No? Okay. All right, we're half done. Moving right along. Number 6 is our tax collector, Diane Nelson. Always a smiling face.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good news.
Good morning. Let's see if I put... good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Mark, all of you. It's a pleasure always to be here before the Board of County Commissioners and to present...
Except it's the wrong
presentation.
Wrong presentation.
Well, mine is very brief.
No standing ovation.
We applaud you.
After that, what can I say? I would like to introduce my Chief Deputy, Carlos Thomas, who's with me today.
Oh, Carlos.
We see him there.
We
saw him when he came in.
Doesn't he look handsome? Let's see. Have I got that in front of you so that you can see the document?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the form in front of you is the summary of the tax collector's 24-14-15 budget by the appropriations category. It is required by all tax collectors in the state of Florida so that the Department of Revenue can approve.
That's awfully fuzzy.
It is? Well, we do have fuzzy numbers.
Fuzzy math. Where have I heard that
You've
before?
heard that phrase, haven't you? Can you see that, or is it you don't have the document in front of you?
It's just very, it's not very
It's very, very
I'm sorry.
blurry, Diane. Can you guys
I'm very
focus?
sorry.
Can you guys focus a little better on that?
I didn't have this problem last year.
It is
Maybe you
blurry.
need upgraded technology up here. Oh, with the eyes. Okay. Well, I'll do my very best to go over what you have in front of you then.
Oh, there we go. It's a little better.
Okay. If you'll move to the middle of the column marked actual expenditures as of June 30th of 15. We all know that it's not June 30th of 15. I put a notation up there in red. These are actual expenditures as of March 31st of this year. It takes us approximately a month to balance out the previous year, or the previous month. And when you requested this by May 1, I didn't have the April, so you have actual expenditures of March 31st, which is $8,242,000 and some change. The actual expenditures column is very important to the tax collectors in the Department of Revenue. By June 1, we are required to conduct our tax certificate sale, and that's when all of the balancing and the distribution of the funds occurs in June 30th. So that's a very important column, and that's when we have our true actual expenditures for that particular month. The summary in front of you, and I always like to say it's a tentative budget because of that reason. We have not conducted our tax certificate sale. That's when the rest of the monies for the 2014 tax roll are collected. I feel bad that you all can't see this. I do have a great staff, and they have been budgeting for many, many years, and they do a great job. So the numbers that you have in front of you are, I feel very comfortable in presenting them to you today. After we conduct our tax sale, we have the month of June, where we balance that out and distribute those fees to the various taxing authorities. That sometimes rolls into the month of July, and then we tweak our budget in the month of July, and then submit it the first week to the Department of, in August, the first to the Department of Revenue for final approval. If you'll move to the left-hand column marked appropriations category, I will briefly go through each one of them. The first one is personal services. We have an approximate increase of $726,500. I like to round off numbers, which equates to a 4.1% increase. We have three contributing factors. I'm very pleased to say that we conducted a classification study for my staff and the frontline staff, those serving the public, answering the phones, processing bills and so forth, were upgraded, approximately 200 employees. So that upgrade was approximately $209,000 this past year. We built in a 3% raise for all of our employees, and that came out to $180,000. And our biggest increase in personal services is almost a 10% is in health insurance, $378,000. 82% of my budget is personal services. The next column is operating expenses, $189,500. The law states that every 10 years we are to start replacing your license plate. That kicked in last year. When we mailed out your license, when we would mail you a decal, the postal fee was only 70 cents. We're now mailing out license plates, so it costs $3 a metal plate to mail it out. So we estimated approximately 60,000 plates each year is being replaced, times 3 is $180,000, so you see an increase. And I was told yesterday by a vendor that postal fees may be going up again. I haven't confirmed it, but of course then that would change that number too. But that's what's happening. We move that over. Operating capital outlay, we had a decrease of $9,100 for 5.6%. That number fluctuates. It just depends on the needs of our organization. Sometimes there's more needs in some years, and others there's not. So this year we had a decrease. Our total expenditures for this year is $22,293,646, an increase of 4.2% over last year. And that concludes my presentation, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Do we have questions? Commissioner Welch.
Again, thank you for your exceptional customer service. I get great comments. I'm sure we all do from the public. Do we have an electronic copy of that schedule? Was that emailed to us?
Yes. And this?
Yes.
Yes, all of that. I'm surprised I'm sorry you don't have that.
We have your budget, but I don't have that schedule. Maybe I just missed the email.
Yeah, we only have one sheet.
So if we can get a soft copy of that.
Absolutely.
And just on the side, we got a couple of emails on your 62nd Avenue South office. Can you give us an update on your thinking?
At this point, we are exploring, enlarging the office that's on 66th Street, and we would merge the two. The biggest thing that we're looking for is to find a driving range for the citizens of Pinellas in the St. Petersburg area. We have just a little one there. Right now, everything is up in the air. We are working with Paul Seco on that project. So as he updates us, he'll update you, and I'll be more than happy to follow up with that.
Okay.
But we have conversations. In fact, Carlos spoke to him last week. But at this point, things are, they're looking at different landlords and different things like that. But they will be well served, and I would love to see, I do know that we'd love to have a facility large enough that you would have room for the property appraiser to be there, as well as I think the clerk expressed a desire to have 4 or 5 of their employees. If we can find something large enough to handle that, you would then have someone that would come in. If you have a driver's license suspension, they can take care of that because the clerk is there. The property appraiser at our Starkey Road is well received. They love us having us there. Pam and I get along great, and I'm sure that would work with the clerk as well as her in another facility.
Okay. Thank
They
you.
will be well served.
Appreciate it.
Commissioner Long?
Yes, good morning, and thanks for that
Jan.
very nice overview. Now, as a person that can remember the days when I used to go get my license renewed, and I would have to stand in line out the door, and it could take an hour and a half before I could get my work there completed and leave, I thought you might be interested that my husband yesterday went to get his license renewed, and from the time he walked through the door till he walked out, it was 6 minutes. He never talks about stuff like that, but that's all he could talk about last
thank
night.
you.
So congratulations on the work that you've done to improve the public service
Thank
in
you.
your offices.
It takes a lot of cross-training, I have to tell you that.
I'm sure it
not an
does.
easy task. And I will compliment the county in moving to the Taleo system versus the old, when we had the hiring process. That was horrible. Peggy used to have to hear from me all the time. It needs to be improved. We are now being able to hire people with the skill set that's needed, almost instantly, where the paperwork would be months, and by then they've already moved on to a different job. So it is more efficient, and we're able to fill positions with the qualified people. And thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. A follow-up, Mr. Chair. How many vacant positions do you have? Do you know?
I am budgeted, or we had at one time, 295 positions. But I have to tell you, between cross-training and processes being improved, new technology, I have 268 that are approved. I probably have 295 there. We just have chosen not to fill them. In fact, one of my deputies is retiring this month, and we're going to suspend that particular position. I'm going to see if we can do without it. That's I think it's because we've got well-trained staff that we think we can do it without it. So we're going to suspend it for this time. And I'd much rather have them on the front line, because that's where the rubber hits the road, is serving the public out front. And I have to tell you, it's very difficult. I know you've seen that article in the paper about the sexual predator, and it was on Channel News. It's just a simple, you check the wrong box or something. And I spoke with the department on that. There is a 2-step process, but I think they can make it clearer to that clerk so that error doesn't happen. But those are the things that happen that makes the news media. I will say that we have been speaking with the media as well as Airbnb, I'm sure, with tourist development. We are working with the city code enforcement officer in St. Petersburg after the article, and I'm happy to report that the majority of those people have been registered, and we are collecting taxes. They also know that if they have an issue, that they're more than welcome to touch base with us. So,
thank you.
With that,
Commissioner Eggers?
Yeah, I'm not going to tell other stories like the one Commissioner Long said, but I do have people. I know you want to hear them, but I do have a lot of folks telling me the same thing, that the service is just unbelievable. So thank you. Keep up the great work. And just for clarification, it looked like the supervisor was asking for one additional person. You're asking for no additional folks at all in the budget?
I have positions that I can't fill.
Right.
I choose not to. Now, I have to tell you, our numbers are between, when you do a oral exam with a motorist that needs a driver's license, sometimes those will last between 2 and 4 hours long, because there's a language barrier. You have an interpreter. They've failed. You have to have a road test. Driver's license is my most complex program that we administer, and it doesn't get any easier. And people, the economy is good. We're registering more and more motor vehicles and titling them. We have contracts, interlocal agreements with private tag agencies that they bring their work into our facility and so forth, so lots of work. And they love calling us. I can tell you, when someone knows that you got a real person on the other end, and if they've done business with you, they'll call you again. So.
Well, I just wanted to commend you for that, because I think as the tax collections start coming up a little bit, we're all going to be a little tempted to start adding back. I think we have to be very careful to add back slowly. So I commend you for your fiscal prudence. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Looks like it. Thank you very much. Do we have any cards?
Thank you.
Nothing on that? All right. Next on our agenda is the property appraiser. Ms. DeBow, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I normally start my presentations with you with the numbers, but today I'm not going to start with the numbers. I'm going to start with the reason for the numbers. And our biggest challenge, quite frankly, is that in the last 2 years and 6 months, we have retired 25 people, which is 20% of our staff, with a combined total of 610 years experience.
Oh, my.
There was a time not long ago when the property appraiser's office had the average oldest aged employee and longest tenured employee. I don't think that's true anymore. We're not quite done yet rotating people out of the office, but I consider at this point in my second term my most important long-term obligation, aside from the annual requirement of producing a tax roll, to be to make sure that the office is properly staffed and budgeted for the new property appraiser, whoever he or she may be, who will come in 2017. And frankly, in the really tough budget years, I tried to be a good team player with the county commission and with my fellow constitutional officers. We took our staff over a period of years from what had been 158 people down to 123 people. And that was okay for a while when the number of sales was down, when the amount of new construction was down, when the busyness in the office was reduced because of the decline in the real estate market. But just as the real estate market drives the economy and growth and things going on in the county, it also drives the workload in the property appraiser's office. Foreclosures even ended up with us having fewer exemption applications to process for a number of years because the people who were owning homes were not entitled to exemptions. So in the last, as I said, since the beginning of fiscal year 13, we have retired a lot of people. But not only have we retired a lot of people, we've retired a lot of key people. And rather than go through names and positions, what I'd like to do today is to just ask the people in the office who have assumed managerial roles in the property appraiser's office in the last 2 years, please stand up. And there's 3 of them not here today.
7, 8,
thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Our deputy for appraisal retired. Our assistant deputy for land records retired. Our director of tangibles personal property retired. Our director of exemptions retired. Director of our St. Pete branch office retired, and he was responsible for more than half the residential appraisals in the county. In addition, our tax roll manager has retired. And we have also put in place an assistant director in our commercial department because I believe that it's very important for us to have succession management planning, just as I know you value and I know Mark places a great value on as well. For this reason, I am adding, with all these retirements, I am adding 6 positions back to our complement of people. For close to 15 years, we had between 156 and 158 people in the property appraiser's office. Over a period of 5 years, we reduced that to 123. And while I'm certainly not looking to go back to 156 or 146 or 136, we need some additional people. The people who we are retiring, by virtue of their experience, are faster, they have fewer questions, they've been around for a long time. We've really benefited from changes in the real estate industry. The people that we're hiring today, especially on the appraisal side of the office, are coming to us as state-certified appraisers. And we're no longer having to grow our own professional appraiser staff. But they do have to be trained in the difference between looking at 4 or 5 comparables and appraising one house to using computer models to appraise 10 or 11,000 properties at a time. We've been very fortunate from the fact that a lot of appraisers who worked in the private sector don't want to really work in the private sector anymore because the rules of the appraisal game and the appraisal management companies have just changed the way they do their work. So we've been able to hire some really high-quality people, but all the good intentions, all of the best of attitudes, all of the good skills that they bring to the table doesn't negate the fact that we have lots of new people who can make very honest mistakes very easily that need to be caught before it affects the tax roll. And the other thing that, well, I'll get to some other things, specifically workload measures in a moment, but because I know the numbers are important to you, right off the top, I will acknowledge, first of all, these numbers are for my entire budget. They are not the 84% that's funded by the general fund. I really prepare the whole budget, and you pay for most of it through the general fund. About 16% of it is paid by other taxing authorities. My budget is sent to the Department of Revenue. For those of you who are new on the board, it will need to be there by June 1st. When they approve the budget, it comes back to me and to you, and I post it on the web page. But they have budget approval authority for both me and for our tax collector, Diane Nelson. So by this chart, you can see that I'm coming in $262,000 over the target that you set for me. Having said that, $60,000 of that I am prepared to take out of this budget if you approve the BTS budget item for getting Windows servers licenses. You will see that Mr. Rose from BTS has a large decision package for you. It was the item that was amended yesterday to add the clerk of court's cost to it. I have $60,000 in this budget. It's specifically on a contingency line. I can only spend it to buy those servers license for our Windows servers if you don't approve that line item out of Mr. Rose's budget. So 60 of that 262,000 should come out of this budget and come back to you, but I need to be prepared to buy those for myself depending on what your priorities are when it comes time for BTS.
Commissioner Welch?
Is that hardware? Are those servers or?
It's licenses, Windows licenses for servers.
Okay.
It's the item that we had the long discussion about the different options at the last BTS board meeting.
So that's in Marty's budget.
It is in Marty's budget, and when that item is approved, I will take this out of my budget. Okay. If I know that's going to happen before June 1st, I will submit my budget to the Department of Revenue without it. If I don't know for sure that you're going to approve that item of his budget, then I will leave it in. But if later he buys those licenses, I will not be able to spend that $60,000 on anything but those licenses. Okay. That's why we put it on a contingency line. If you look at, it's about the fourth block down on this summary sheet where it says non-operating, there's $60,000 under the request. That's actually a contingency item.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Although adding 6 people, you would typically think would force the personnel costs to go up more than that 5.11% that you see on the top of this slide. The fact is the people we've retired had much higher salaries than the people who are being promoted to replace them and the people who we are hiring as new employees. Half of those people that we're adding back, 3 of the 6 we're adding back, are actually able to be absorbed within the budget we had. It's the additional 3 that we're adding that lead to the overage in the budget. You'll note that the operating expenses are increased by $112,000. I'd like to go over that with you to let you know what that's for. Back in the first decade of the 2000s, let's say the 2007-2008 time frame, we had a travel budget of $156,000, and it wasn't because we were taking trips to Hawaii. It's because we were reimbursing our appraisers who use privately owned vehicles to do all of the property inspections in the county out in the field. Over time, the legislature changed that requirement from a once every 3 years inspection to a once every 5 years inspection. The other thing they did was allowed us to do inspections that didn't involve new construction and more difficult inspections using aerial imagery. We have been doing that. So the travel budget has actually gone from $156,000 a year down to $33,000, and that's an individual line item, and that's been over a period of time. But part of that increase in operating expenses is that we are using some leased vehicles now. I've always been concerned that our appraisers, we were largely operating with our appraisers' privately owned vehicles, and when the day comes that they need to help do damage assessments, I'm not enthused about sending them out in their private cars with debris on the roads and stuff. No. So we are leasing some cars now, and between saving on the mileage reimbursements to the appraisers and saving on the fleet maintenance when those vehicles get older, it's not a make money proposition, but it's a break-even proposition, and a portion of that increase in operating expenses is to lease 4 more cars this year. I also have elected not to hire a permanent staff member to serve as my executive assistant. I know that sometimes when a newly elected person takes office, they have, for that particular position, they often have somebody in mind that they would like to bring in, someone they're familiar with or they work with. I'm using a temporary person, using the temp agency that the county uses to fill that position for the next year and a half, to leave the spot open for the newly elected appraiser to fill it how they will. It just seems I don't want to hire somebody and then have their job be in jeopardy. I prefer not to do that. And then the last thing, because we have so many new employees, we also have had an increase in our education budget. Our new appraisers need to go through a 4 to 5 series course of instruction that prepares them to be mass appraisers rather than independent fee appraisers. Those courses aren't free. A great number of our newer employees have earned designations from the International Association of Assessing Officers. Almost every one of them that we've hired in the last 2 or 3 years is state certified. We do pay their state certification dues, and so there has been some increase in our education budget. As far as workload goes, these are the other budget challenges that we have. We've had a significant increase in real estate transactions. If you read the newspaper this morning, you read that there was a 22% increase in the number of sales from the first quarter of 2015 compared to the first quarter of 2014. And we're feeling that here in Pinellas County. When we began cutting our staff back in the 2008, 9, 10 timeframe, we were looking at 36,000, 37,000, 38,000 real estate transactions a year for those few years when the market bottomed out. The last 2 years, we've topped 54,000 transactions that have come through the system. Those have to be processed because, frankly, the new owners' names come to us from those deeds. We remove exemptions based on receiving and processing those deeds for people who have sold homestead property. Sometimes when deeds come to us, they tell us that we have map work we need to do. Someone who owned a house that sat on a lot with a vacant lot next door may have just sold off the vacant lot. So what we've seen happen in the last year or so, because of the increase in sales activity and the resurgence of the real estate market, we have more new construction to inspect, we have more map work to be done, we have more deeds to be processed, and it's all really tied to the real estate market. You will see when I certify the roll to you in a few months that while last year the 2014 tax roll had about $300 or $310 million in new construction, we're not quite done yet this year, and we're up to $613 million worth of new construction. And that's a great thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's good that we're recovering, but it does make work. It makes work for your department. I know that you're looking at one of your departments that was cut back that does code enforcement and building inspections. We are affected by the same things. And so that's why I wanted to outline these other budget challenges that we're facing. The positions that I'm adding to the office include 2 deeds processors, but lest you think that's all they're going to do, we've advertised for 2 positions that will where the people we hire will process deeds. They will be competent to do data entry on new buildings into our data entry system. They will be cross-trained to provide customer service, to include taking exemption applications, and one of them will help administer the clerical workload we're having in our mapping department right now with all the new subdivisions and plats. You'd think for a county that was built out, we wouldn't have any of that work. That's not the case. I had one of our appraisers report to me that right now she's got 35 new houses going up in her area in the old northeast part of St. Pete, and they're almost all tear downs and rebuilds. And in her case, they're almost all in flood zones too. So what's happening, you have homes being built to new code as well, which will help alleviate some of that flood insurance problem that we had. We're also adding 2 mappers back to our complement of staff. When the market slowed down, you may recall that was about the time that the Enterprise Geographic Information Systems Department came into being and went to work in the business technology service arena. 3 of our staff members went over to help populate that new department. I'm really missing them now. I'm really missing them now. We also had a retirement. So that department's been operating with 4 fewer people. I need to add 2 of them back. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about them. I'm actually paying a contractor right now just to help us keep up with the mapping so that we can get to the point where I can hire these people because the workload's really increased. Also, when I first came into office, if you may recall, it seems like a million years ago, but Amendment 1 had just passed, which included an exemption for tangible personal property. With that, the vast majority of tangible personal property accounts became exempt. But it did not alleviate the need to still get returns from people and have them on file. And we have some catching up to do. Frankly, when our appraisers are out in the field and they see a new business open and it's a one-person shop or a 2-person CPA firm, and we know the tangible personal property value on that property is less than $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000, we have not gone out of our way to devote limited resources to picking up accounts that are simply going to be exempt.
Anyway.
We're going back to those people now and asking them to file that return to cross all the T's and dot all the I's so a new property appraiser doesn't come into office with incomplete records. So we're adding an appraiser back to tangible personal property and 1 appraiser to the residential department. I might also let you know on the tangible personal property side, we are now outsourcing the review work for the accounts that make up 25% of tangible personal property, which is Duke Energy, Verizon, the big utility companies. We have a specialist, a private sector person that we're outsourcing that work toward. It's a very specialized field, but there's a whole lot of value at risk, more than $1 billion in value at stake. So we are doing that with an outsourced person now as well. And this is just to let you see how the retirements broke out over the last 3 years. They have picked up amazingly. In the last 6 months, it seems like all we do is have cake downstairs, and it's not for birthdays. It's to say goodbye. I'm going to continue to try to staff the office to where I think it needs to be staffed to get our work done. I'm going to continue to try to be frugal with the budget, but I have reached the point where to be responsible to my successor, whoever that may be, I've got to fill some holes because we've got vendors and weekend people and all of that overtime kind of people helping plug the overflow, and right now we just can't keep operating this way. It's not a good way for the office to operate, and it's not a good way to make sure that we keep doing good quality work. And with that, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Any questions for Pam?
I don't have a question. I just want to thank her for her leadership.
Okay, go ahead.
Particularly on flood insurance, not only in the county, but statewide and really nationally, as well as on the GIS program, and just thank you for moving us forward.
My pleasure.
Thank you for thinking ahead of who's going to be replacing you and what he or she's going to be running into. That's the smart thing to do.
You know, there's one person I need to mention before I leave today, and my chief deputy, Erin Moore, has been with us for a long time. She's got over 33 years experience, not just in Pinellas County, but in other property appraisers' offices. And Erin's here today.
Yes,
Wave, Erin. Aaron,
stand up, Aaron.
Even though,
there you are.
You know, when I leave at the beginning of 2017, Aaron is going to stay the better part of another year to help the new property appraiser get through their first tax roll. It's different than anything that person will ever have done before, and that's okay because we have a good staff. But Aaron's my right hand, and you know, I'm really glad she made the decision to stay an extra year.
Well, you have one more of these to do
I
next
do,
year.
I do,
Yeah, so
I do.
let's not go saying goodbye to you yet.
I'm not. But it really is. It's a long process to get an
Yes, it
office
is.
ready.
And you've done a great
to do
job. Thank you
something.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Like the rest
Pam.
of the day.
Thank you.
Any cards, Kevin, on that? No. I just want to remind the group, because I know some of you come in here later, if you're going to speak on number 10, please fill out a card, because we want to get a reading on how many people are going to want to speak. Kevin and Irina, raise your hand. They have the cards over there. That way I'll know whether or not we're going to be breaking for lunch or not. Okay? All right, number 8, Ken Burke, our clerk. Great to have you here, Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioners. I think it's a good opportunity to talk about the clerk's office as it relates to the Board of County Commissioners. We're a little bit different than the other constitutional officers who you've heard from this morning. Matter of fact, all of them really have not only independence, but they have independent functions. But the clerk's office, although it's an independent office, we're very intertwined with the working of the Board of County Commissioners and your departments. And so it's a very collaborative office that I hold as far as it relates to the BCC, as far as relating to the work that you're responsible for, and especially what your county administrator is responsible for. Let me introduce Deborah Mills. She is our CIO from the clerk's office. We have Rakesh Patel, who is the director of our technology department. Person who is a very stranger to you all, Clarissa Harris. You probably have never met her before. Chief Deputy for the Finance.
Who does an outstanding job with us every week.
She does an outstanding job with everything she does, and she works extremely hard. And matter of fact, getting her a little bit relief is part of my budget presentation here to you today. That's why I brought her, because she's going to be staring at you. Let me go over how the clerk works with the board. And this, Commissioner Eggers is new to this is your first budget hearing. Commissioner Gerard, this is your first budget hearing with the county. And so let me talk about that as the role of the clerk as it relates to the board. We just had our wonderful property appraiser, Mr. Bowe, here. The clerk's office staffs the Value Adjustment Board. Some of you have in the past have served as chair or members of that board. Thankfully, the legislature didn't change that this year. They were going to, and that bill failed, thankfully. But that's something that we work with the property appraisers. Actually, we work with the board in staffing that entity. We also handle all the printing for the county. You may not realize that. The clerk's office is a full print shop. We do the printing not only for the court, for the clerk's office, for the Board of County Commission, but for the other constitutional officers. And we get a lot of accolades from your county departments on the print jobs that they ask for. We also handle all mail services for the county, and that's mail, M-A-I-L, not M-A-L-E. But we make sure that our couriers go from place to place, carrying your mail, the judiciary's mail. We even make a run up to Pasco County for the judiciary each day. You may not realize it, but our couriers stop at over 200 stops each day, government entities throughout the county, and they're responsible for that. Also, part of my responsibility is I'm clerk to the Board of County Commissioners. We're responsible for all your minutes at not only your meetings, but we also serve 19 other boards that we are the official record keeper for, and that's a big responsibility. Right now, we're working with county administrator, with the county attorney, on the agenda automation program, which is a big program to help advance us on our agendas. And you know, especially when this comes up, obviously it came up this past year with the solid waste facility, and going back 25 years of every amendment, every time this board touched that issue, we have a record of, and we are able to produce it for you when need be. And so that's an important item. Obviously, the ordinances which you pass, we're responsible for processing those up to Tallahassee, again, working with the county attorneys. mentioning we're intertwined. That's the purpose of trying what I relay is. It's an independent office, but our work is very collaborative with the county administration and the county attorney's office. Also, we are responsible for all of your department's records. When they are going to the warehouse, they go to the clerk's office, we maintain all county department records. There's a tremendous amount of regulation on those records. We have to produce them if they're within that time period. At the same time, we're very quick to destroy records when they're supposed to be destroyed. And actually, that's a liability if you hold on to records beyond the retention period. So all that has to be accounted for. Every record has a different type of schedule to it as to how long that record should be retained. So we handle that. Not very glamorous, but very important, especially in the item when you get into litigation, to produce the records which need to be produced and making sure the records which were to be destroyed were destroyed in a timely manner. We also do have the responsibility for internal audit. This is done through our Inspector General's office. And this is an area over the past 10 years that I've served as clerk. I have to give credit to both the clerk's office and to the county administrator and the departments for the change of attitude here. And it's been a change of attitude on both parties to make it much more cooperative. Even the audits, and I'll give you a sneak preview, we're going to be releasing one on the Animal Services Department. Lots of recommendations on that, but at the same time, there's a credit given to the management on their cooperation and willingness to accept our recommendations to make things better. And that's the way it's supposed to work. Not be embarrassed at their findings, but to say, hey, let's put those findings out there and let's work together to make things better for the citizens of our county. And so that's an area, and Mark, I'm going to compliment you and your departments on the cooperation you show with our Inspector General, and it is a good working relationship. Obviously, another area which is very, very important, and one which you devoted a lot of energies to at the last meeting, where we had the audit presentation, is the area of finance. As you realize, the clerk is responsible for investing all county funds. Proud to say, as of a few days ago, we had $926 million under investment. We're at a peak period of time, spend down until the tax collector brings that money back in November and December. And so we're responsible for the investment of those funds. There's three principles to investing of county funds. First of all is preservation of principal. Second is liquidity. And third is yield. That's different than maybe what we exercise in our own personal lives, but in government accounting, that's considered the standard, and that's something we take very seriously. We pay all county bills. We do the pre-audit function for the county. We pay the county's payroll. We work with HR department of the county on a lot of issues which involve payroll. We obviously issue the county's financial statements, and we work with the external auditor to present those statements for meeting all the requirements. So that's how we work together with the clerk's office. As you can see, is very intertwined with your departments in what we do. The clerk and Commissioner Long asked this question about how many staff people we have in the clerk's office. We have 568 total staff in the clerk's office. The BCC, and under this proposed budget, will be responsible for 116 of those staff. The other staff folks are budgeted from funds outside of the BCC's funding, from the state-regulated funds, from the fees that we bring in, and from trust fund money. Okay, those are all outside of the Board of County Commission. So 116 of the 568 employees are funded through the budget given to me as clerk by the Board of County Commission. You will note that our target, we are over our target, and I want to explain about that. A lot of what Mrs. DeBoe talked about in the property appraiser's office, a lot of the same logic applies here to the clerk's office. We're over the budget, $466,120 from the target which you gave us. Okay, let me explain why that is. And this is, Bill, I'll give you the sheet. I know we gave you some detail already on this. We have three new positions. One is an associate director of our finance division. Another is clerk technology specialist. The third is a clerk technology developer. Those three positions add up to a total of $343,921. We have savings in our budget of $51,801. So what I consider the real over-target number is $292,120, okay? And I'm going to get into why I have a difference with the OMB. And I really don't have a difference. It's more an explanation. First of all, there was a position that transferred from purchasing to the clerk's office. It's a position that was a vendor management position, and both purchasing and the clerk's office agreed that position should have been housed under the clerk rather than purchasing. That position should have changed in last year's budget and did not. We had a budget amendment back for fiscal year 2014. That wasn't reflected in last year's budget. That figure is $70,000, okay? So that's really something which has already taken place but was not acknowledged in our budget. So that's $70,000. Then there's two positions in our technology department which support the Hyperion budget software. And this is really the OMB budget software that we all use in the county for the budgeting purposes. Back when we started the Oracle support model, the former county administrator and I worked together with everyone else to figure out how best to set up the support model. And we put positions under the clerk, and we put positions under the BTS. There's probably, in looking at that now, there's probably two positions, those budget positions that relate to the Hyperion software, really shouldn't fall under the clerk, okay? And we're working, this is kind of an influx thing right now. Bill and Clarissa and Peggy Rowe have been working to figure out how is this model which we set up before in anticipation of the system going live, how should it be revised to more accurately reflect how it should work and how it is working now. And we're talking about that right now, whether they want the position still under the clerk, although we really don't feel they fall under the clerk, and I'm happy to give them to BTS. And there's one position we would like that's in BTS under the clerk, which works under this Oracle. And we're also looking at salaries, whether it's best to employ people. Right now, we don't have people in these positions, and we're paying a contractor, and it's a very expensive rate. I can tell you this Hyperion software to support is very expensive. And so we're using a contractor right now to support that. And really the decision has to be made, should we bring in permanent employees, and some work's not being done because we're trying to be judicious on the use of the contractor, or should we continue with the contractor? These are decisions which, again, Mr. Woodard, Bill, Clarissa, and Peggy Rowe and I are all working on to come up with the best model. So this has been happening right now. So these positions, what we're saying here that with these two $52,000 amounts, this is what those positions need to be increased by to get the proper help in here. So once this is add on to what the current level is, because we can't hire them at the current level. No one's applying for those positions. So they have to be increased, and whether they reside under my budget as clerk, or they move under the county administrator, or they move under BTS, this money has to be allocated so we can bring the proper help in, either by employee or additional contract services. So really, for those of you, Mr. Long, who's in the legislature, it's kind of like a placeholder to make sure whoever has these employees has the proper funds to hire them, okay? So whether it's under clerk, again, BTS. So this will probably be, matter of fact, I'm sure it will be worked out before the actual budget becomes finalized, and we'll know where to place these dollars, but they need to be placed where whoever's going to be responsible for hiring those employees. Commissioner Welsh, you had a question?
Well, you answered most of it. These are technical positions, not functional.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Everybody's shaking their head yes.
Because you mentioned BTS might be the proper place for it. And
we're not sure who's the proper. We're just saying it's.
What's the current salary? This is an increase of $52,000.
The current salary.
Come on up here, Deborah Mills. Was it $84,000?
No, the current salary, we under budgeted last year for that as well. The current salary is $67,475.20.
But there's no one filling these roles.
Identify who she is.
This is Deborah Mills, who's the CIO for the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. So 120 or so.
Yes.
So these are highly sought after technical folks.
Yes, Oracle Hyperion developers.
Okay.
Bill, do you have anything to add?
Hyperion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just clarification.
Sure, Commissioner Eggers.
You said 67. $67,000 per employee per position, and we're asking for a $52,000.
Right, and that's fully loaded with all the benefits that go with it.
So 120,
right,
like you said, including everything.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
And that's the market. You know, I can tell you this, folks, and you probably already know this, technology position and finance position, those have increased to keep up. We're not keeping up.
Yeah, my nieces were asking what fields they should go into.
Tell them get anything with Oracle. If it says Oracle, tell them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Seal?
How much is the contract costing us now?
Do we know how much the contract per hour is costing us?
I'll just stay up here. Again, I'm Deborah Mills. The contractors are costing us about $80 an hour. That's because we're contracting with a firm that's giving us really good rates on that, but normally they go for $120 per hour. And we have actually 2 contractors that are filling that right now, currently. So we've paid this past 6 months $129,000, and we had to budget again for an additional $129,000 to cover that. We've also recently hired an Oracle contractor because the position is also vacant, and that is paying at a rate of $99 per hour.
Okay. Commissioner Long?
Yes, and I know you haven't finished your presentation yet, Mr. Burke, but I just, how you talked about how many employees you have, but how many vacancies do you have out of that 568?
Actually, very few vacancies. I don't have the exact amount, and actually under our new personnel system, it's we're hiring people a lot faster than we used to in the county, which is a good thing.
Okay, and then if I might, Mr. Chairman, a follow-up. In regard to that issue of your employees and staff, we talked about this before, and I hear some of your colleagues talk about the study that they've done over the last year to ensure that their compensatory rate is comparable with what, that enables us to recruit better and more qualified employees. Are you adjusting your salaries within your department to bring them up a bit as well?
Just, we can't do that individually because that's all under the unified personnel system. Right. And so we take a look, and what we have is an audit done of positions that we think have changed in scope, which demand a new salary level. And then we ask personnel to do that type of audit and determine if the salary level needs to be changed. Personnel has been very cooperative with the clerk's office in doing these audits. And they either can come from management, or if we get enough employees who feel that their position has changed, then we'll ask personnel to do an audit based on employee request. And we have to be careful about that. It's kind of like, I work for a law firm, which you're well familiar with, for 21 years. Just because you're using an IBM Selectric 2 back in 1986, and then in 1996 you're using a computer, doesn't mean you're a computer specialist. You're the tools which you're being which we're asking you to use has changed, but your job has remained the same.
Right.
So there's always that rub. When people change technology, they think, well, my job has changed tremendously. No, the outcome of your job has been the same, except the method of using it is different. And that's the hard part when HR does an audit, is to come out, has their job really meaningfully changed, or just the techniques of using it? And everyone's job has changed in the clerk's office, because 5 years ago we went to Oracle, and now we're the Odyssey. The O's have gotten us in the clerk's office as far as people's approach to work.
But you don't have a lot of vacancies, and so that tells me that you must be
well. We fill our vacancies very quickly. That's I put a lot of pressure. It hurts employee morale when there's vacancies.
Yep.
And so we try to fill our vacancies as quickly as possible. And under new system, we're allowed to. Good. Before, it seemed like it took forever. That was a frustration I know Mr. Woodard shares with me.
Thank you.
And speaking of employees, and that's, I think, first of all, I want to show that out of the 466,120, what I consider, and I think OMB would agree with me, 292,120 is really the new over target amount when you take out the transfer position from purchasing and you take out what we're asking for the Hyperion increase, which may not even fall under the clerk come October 1st. And I want to put this in some perspective as to where we were, kind of like Pam did, and where we are today. Back in 07-08, we had 142 positions funded by the Board of County Commission. And this year, under our 16 budget, we're asking for 116. That's 26 less positions than we had 8 years in the clerk's office, which is substantial percentage-wise when you're talking about 142 down to 116. And we're being asked to do the same work. As a matter of fact, with the Oracle system and our whole implementation, a lot of duties which used to be out in the departments have now been centralized in the clerk's office, putting more responsibility as far as the bill paying and as far as the drawing up of the invoices. So we have more responsibility and 26 fewer workers in the clerk's office out of the board-funded positions. And that translates into dollars. Back in 2008, our budget in the clerk's office that was funded by the board was $13,754,570. In our 2016 request, it's $10,828,370, a decrease of close to $3 million from the 08 levels. So it's an increase, and part of this reason for the associate finance director, Claritha and Fred have done way beyond what a normal professional should have to do. I mean, I think a 55-hour work week is probably an easy work week for them, and I'm not exaggerating. You can call here at 8 o'clock, at 9 o'clock at night, and Claritha's in her office getting reports out and working. Fred Dean has a retirement plan within the next couple of years. Claritha, thank God, is a little bit longer than that, but she has plans in the next 5 years. And so we need to bring in this associate director of finance with the intention of having some succession management there, that they can take those positions if they work out well, and we need to bring them on board now. And that's why that request is being made. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present this budget to you. Not to pat ourselves on the back too much, but I think we should take great pride. I think it's been a theme all morning, from the chief judge and the property appraiser and the tax collector and the state attorney and the public defender today and the supervisor of election. But we should take great pride in the relationships that we, the constitutionals, have with the Board of County Commissioners and what we have fostered here. And I think it's because of our hard work to make sure we communicate with each other. We try to understand each other's needs and where we're coming from, and working together to help our citizens the best in Pinellas County. I know you get those CLIPS services. I get the CLIPS services from around the state and around the nation. And it's amazing how much acrimony exists within local government of different entities fighting each other. And I think the relationship we have is one that we should celebrate, but we know it takes work, and we always work at it. So that's my presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ken. You did an outstanding job again. And again, I want to thank you for your work and your leadership in this department since you've been there. And really, other counties are jealous of us the way we have such a great relationship with all of our constitutionals. I mean, it's really, we're very lucky, and it's great working with you. Any other questions? Sure. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Echo your comments, of course. Just on the technology specialist and developer, what are they going to focus on?
A lot of the justice system. As you know, Commissioner Welch, because you've sat on that board, you got out of it for a year.
That was Commissioner Latvala's fault when she left.
Oh, there she is. Yeah. She can't stay away. It's good to see you, Commissioner Latvala. The Odyssey is the best system out there, but it's not as good as what we had, and there's a lot of workarounds that we're still working on, and so that's the main focus of those positions.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? No?
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving right along. Pinellas Planning Council, Mike Crawford. Is Catherine here with you today too, Mike? I can't tell.
Yes,
there she is.
is.
Catherine Burbridge back.
I saw her name on the list.
Yes. Nice having you here.
Thank you. Just to start out again, I'm Mike Crawford, with the interim executive director with Pinellas Planning Council for about another month, right?
Interim, one more month.
One more month. And just as you all know, the Pinellas Planning Council is still refining the budget. The MPO is working on their part as well. So this is pretty close to what we're going to end up with, but it may change a little bit. And I know the clerk used a little bit of history in his presentation. I'd like to use probably more of that in order to show you that we're meeting our goals goals that were set a number of years ago, I think when you were on the board way back then. And more recently, towards the end, I'll show how we're integrating the functions of the MPO, staffing, and some of their budgetary items as well. There's more needed to what you'll see at the end, and I'll talk about that again, based on new directions and input from our new executive director, the MPO, and the PPC as they work through the next couple of months. So just to quickly start out here, we had this really starts way back in fiscal year 9. We had a significant reduction in our expenditures in fiscal year 9 between 9 and 10. We dropped from a little over $1.5 million to $1.16 million. And commensurate with that, our tax revenues dropped $1.21 million down to almost just under $800,000. That was very significant. It was a year when we all experienced very low tax values, of course, in those years. Pinellas Planning Council gets almost 100% of their revenues from taxes. In addition to those lower tax values, I don't know if anybody remembers, again, Commissioner Gerard probably remembers, but in addition to those lower tax values, we had a lowered millage rate at the same time. And that was all part of a big drop in order to utilize our fund balance, which I'll get to in just a moment. And over all those years, we continued to reduce our expenditures, continuing on the path that was started in fiscal year 10, added all that up, and it ends up being about almost $3 million had we continued with our budget that we had in fiscal year 9. And again, this is all part of the council's goal to reduce expenditures over that period of time. And this shows the tax revenues that were reduced up until fiscal year 13. And this was, again, tied with the lower tax values as well as the lower millage rate. And it's almost about $2 million just in this period alone. And then we asked the council to approve a millage increase at this point here, which they did for fiscal year 14. It was a fairly significant millage increase, but you'll see in a moment why that was needed. That millage increase plus increases in values brought our revenues much closer to our expenditures for that year. And then just continuing it out for the years up until fiscal year 16. The tax revenues, even though we're showing an increase from fiscal year 14, the tax revenues were lowered almost $3 million over that same period of time by the council. Fairly significant for a small agency, I would say. And this slide just relates to our goal to utilize our fund balance to offset our tax revenues until we stabilized. And it started back in this year here. We had a pretty significant fund balance in these periods. And again, the council asked that we utilize that as opposed to our the blue middle here, which is our tax revenues. They asked that we use the fund balance instead. And then simply this slide shows how the fund balance was used to make up the difference, or the gaps between our tax revenues and our expenditures, tax revenues and expenditures and so on. The fund balance was utilized to make up that difference. Towards the end here, we're starting to flatten out, maybe increase a little bit. We didn't expect that. We were expecting that to trail off, but we had 2 retirements that happened a little earlier than we had budgeted for. We also did not hire an executive director for a number of years, and that money just kept carrying over as we did budget for that. Anyway, the final slide for just the PPC is that we are where we said we would be, and that's to try and balance out our tax revenues with our expenditures to get out probably next year where they'll be very similar, and we won't have to rely on our fund balance so heavily. That's mostly the PPC. I'll switch now to add the MPO to the budget. In December of 2015, actually back even to September, the council finally unified with the MPO. The board became the same. And in December, the council entered into a staff services agreement with the MPO to start to merge those 2 entities from a staff's perspective. And again, that was December of 2015. it caused all the staff, the MPO staff and the PPC staff, to be under one appointing authority. So they're PPC staff first, but then through the staff services agreement, they do MPO tasks based on the MPO's Unified Planning Work Program. It also sets up the PPC as the point agency in all of our payroll and the majority of our contracts where it makes sense. So I just zoomed in on the 2 fiscal years when we start adding the MPO here, just a little shift in scale. But we've been talking to you about expenditures, tax revenues, and fund balance. We've added a 4th column here, which is intergovernmental revenue, which comes from the MPO. So with that shift of scale, this is my last slide for those who want to get to the next item. And what we did in December 15 wasn't a full year. In fiscal year 15, it wasn't a full year where we added payroll and fleet for the Pinellas County Metropolitan Planning Organization. It's not until this year that we're adding the full year of their payroll services as well as intergovernmental services, which are payments to Office of Management Budget, to the county attorney's office, the clerk's office, and what have you. All of those are captured in here in the expenditures, and it's paid for through intergovernmental revenue from the MPO, and it's about $1.58 million. So it's a little more than doubles our budget, but again, it's money that comes from Pinellas County. The MPO still operates PPC. They have existing contracts with entities. They also collect money from the federal government through a number of grants and what have you. But we have integrated, again, about $1.6 million of their funds into the PPC for, again, payroll, fleet, rent, intergovernmental services. One of the big pushes with the staff services agreement was to have the PPC be the point for working with maybe, for example, real estate management, where we have a contract or a lease for our space across the street with PPC and the real estate management. It wouldn't make sense for the MPO to go out and take a separate lease with the real estate management, so that will all be under one lease. We would ask for all invoices again from Jim's office and Office of Management Budget and what have you to come to the PPC, and we would pay all of that, and we get reimbursed and all that. So it's starting to make sense, but I did want to add that we really have been doing this based out of necessity. We've also integrated some of our staff based out of necessity, based on retirements and resignation. We had one resignation based on a health reason. So those are based on, again, necessity, but with the new director coming on board with Whit Blanton, as well as working with the PPC and the MPO, we're starting to see some more proactive integration, I think, of the staff over the next year. We may be able to get some of that worked out within the budget between now and when we send it to you in September. But suffice it to say that that's more of that is on its way, again, based on the work that Mr. Blanton has been doing with the board. Even though he's not been he's been hired, but he has not been on our payroll yet. He's putting in a significant amount of work with our staff, with our board, and with other entities as well, getting himself prepared for that. So we'll try and reflect that as best we can in the budget. But overall, PPC's budget is reduced a couple of percentage points. The tax values have increased 4.5%. We're capturing that, again, to try and bring our tax values closer to our expenditures. And we're integrating, again, lastly, with the MPO through our staff services agreement.
Okay, so no need for a millage increase request?
No need for a
millage increase request?
Correct.
Okay, that's the first question.
0.0160 will remain.
All right, the second question, Mike. When we talked about unifying the boards and having one director for both boards, and we thought that there was going to be less people, why are we going from 18 to 20 as far as full-time equivalent positions? It says filling 2 vacant, but if they've already been vacant all this time, why is it necessary to fill those 2?
We had a vacancy come up unexpectedly at Thanksgiving of this fiscal year.
In the PPC or the MPO?
In the PPC.
Okay.
And I didn't fill that. I wanted to wait and allow Whit an opportunity to consider that. And the MPO has had a vacancy with Mr. McCauley as well. And that there's someone that filled that, but the other position is still needing to be filled. So there are no new positions that I'm aware of.
Okay, they're not new. They're just filling.
Yeah.
And we know both of those people that.
Yeah, I should have said that first. Yeah, no new positions, just to fill those two. Again, Sarah and I both hesitated a bit. We didn't want to fill that and force Whit to deal with that. We wanted to have him an opportunity to do that.
Okay.
To decide what to do with those positions.
All righty. Well, thank you for answering both of my questions. Any questions for Mike? No?
Just would like a soft copy of the graphs.
Certainly.
Thank you.
If you can just send that to all of us. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Kevin, are these all the cards? All right. We do not want, I took kind of a unscientific poll of the board, and they would like to take a break because this is, we've been sitting here since 9:30. We'll take a short break, and then we'll come back because we don't want to rush Mitzi's presentation or the people that have signed a card. So it's 5 to 12. Let's just take a 20-minute break. We'll come back at 12:15, and we'll start. So thank you all for your patience, and we'll see you in 20 minutes. Thank you.
20 minutes.
This proposal was developed through a series of public input sessions, advisory meetings, and independent research. And through these efforts, we confirm that the arts industries are a sound investment with significant support from the county's public. We come before you to affirm the cultural and economic potential of the county's arts industry and to ask for your strong support of a plan for enhancing quality of life throughout our communities, encouraging business retention, advancing neighborhood revitalization, helping to improve public education and lifelong learning, and fostering economic development through support of the arts by enabling Creative Pinellas as your designated local arts agency to implement this plan. The information and statistics referenced in our proposal are drawn from multiple sources, including the aforementioned public input sessions, which were held this year in Largo, Tarpon Springs, St. Petersburg, Indian Rocks Beach, and Dunedin, where a combined total of approximately 250 people engaged in discussion, participated in written surveys, or commented through an online form. Our sources also include the City of St. Petersburg economic impact studies conducted in 2010 and 2015, Americans for the Arts Creative Industries studies from 2012 and 13, the Pinellas County Cultural Plan and Hillsborough County Cultural Plan, penned in 2005 and 2008, respectively, National Endowments for the Arts data, and data from a number of other reputable agencies. On April 28th, you received the full 7-page proposal narrative detailing basic concepts in our 3-year plan and including a partial list of individuals who participated in public input sessions. Today, in the interest of time, I will share with you key highlights, focus on Year 1 pilot program initiatives, and welcome questions and comments. For those newer to the Commission, a little bit of background about the agency I work for. Creative Pinellas is the county's designated nonprofit local arts agency. We are an independent nonprofit 501c4 social welfare organization formed in 2011 with a mission, as it was written, to promote, incubate, develop, and sustain Pinellas County's creative communities. That's a lot. We work to ground and achieve that mission by creating connections between organizations, artists, and resources in support of their growth. our vision for the agency, to administer and advocate for artists and organizations countywide as a supporting agency, promote the Pinellas cultural arts and expand cross-marketing through synergies with existing initiatives of the CVB, to foster entrepreneurship and networking among cultural sectors and stimulate economic development through the arts, to expand arts educational access for the underserved, identify and foster arts employment opportunities, build new cultural patrons and develop lifelong audiences, and develop and market the county's arts brand. A bit of national perspective on how a local arts agency is defined by the advocacy group Americans for the Arts. A private organization or agency of local government that provides funding and services to artists and arts organizations, leads community cultural planning efforts, presents programming to the public, and or manages local cultural facilities. Americans for the Arts maintains an alliance called the U.S. Urban Arts Federation, comprised of chief executives from local arts agencies in 60 of our nation's largest cities. In order to become a member of that alliance, LAA's, local arts agencies, must qualify as full-service agencies under the Americans for the Arts standard, which is defined as providing an array of the following: competitive grant-making, public art, technical assistance, facilities management, arts education, cultural tourism, and similar services. When we talk about the arts here at Creative Pinellas, we refer to all genres: visual art and design, performance, dance, film, and literature. We celebrate diversity in our cultural communities and encourage equal access to arts education for all. I'd like to make for you the case for culture. Time and again, research reveals the arts as a sound investment with measurable economic impact. Arts and culture organizations in the Bay Area and in the nation have an impact that surpasses that of professional sports. And the overall return on investment on the arts in this region is 5-1. The Florida Cultural Alliance identifies our state's cultural resources as an integral part of the solution to many challenges we face today, including diversification and development, community revitalization, student achievement, tourism development, crime prevention, and quality of life, among others. The arts attract business and social capital and enhance tourism. For example, arts and culture audiences in our county spend an additional $100.13 million after ticket purchase annually at restaurants, hotels, retail stores, parking garages, and other Pinellas County businesses. The arts create jobs, spending, value, and spur community renewal. In Pinellas County, nonprofit arts and culture are a $159.71 million industry. Pinellas nonprofit arts and cultural organizations spend nearly $60 million annually in this region. Arts and culture activities rank number 5 among all industries in Pinellas County with regard to earnings impact on county households. The creative industries account for nearly 4% of the total number of businesses and nearly 3% of the individuals employed in this county, which, as you know, is the most densely populated in our state, with more than 930,000 residents in 24 incorporated municipalities. We also greet a staggering number of visitors each year, more than 14.5 million. And the media takes note. St. Petersburg, for example, made the New York Times list of 52 destinations in the world to see in 2014, ranking the city among famed urban centers. It's such an important time for the arts throughout our county as a national spotlight continues to shine on us, offering a priceless opportunity to capitalize on visitation and employment growth. How we choose to invest now lays the foundation for how we will be positioned in the future. So a look briefly at how some others are investing, again, drawing from Americans for the Arts. In fiscal year 2013, 58 local arts agencies in 60 of our nation's most populated cities received approximately 85% of their budgets from city and county governmental sources to the tune of more than $470 million. Here in Florida, the Cultural Council of Greater Jacksonville, serving Duval County with a population of more than 800,000 people, reported operating expenditures of approximately $3.1 million in 2013, and $2.8 million of that came from local government support. In Hillsborough County, our friends across the bay, with a population of approximately 1.3 million, reported more than $980,000 in operational expenditures in 2013, with more than $680,000 of that coming from city and county support. And the Miami-Dade County Department of Cultural Affairs, the big dogs, with serving a population of approximately 2.6 million, host to Art Basel and numerous other fairs and festivals where buyers actively collect, reported a budget of more than $26 million in fiscal year 2013 and received more than $29 million from their city and county government, a surplus. Looking at the national average, again, from LAAs in 60 of our nation's largest cities, total support from local governmental sources totaled just under $10 million in 2013. What all this adds up to is a clear case that a strong investment in cultural assets is considered a wise investment, and making it here will move Pinellas County into a much more competitive position among Florida counties that already invest in and reap returns from the arts as part of their economic development strategies. Our proposal contains two key points: marketing and brand growth, and project funding and community engagement. Under the heading of the first, marketing and brand growth, Creative Pinellas is very fortunate to have built the foundations of a strong and beneficial relationship with our area's CVB. And that agency has demonstrated a firm commitment to weaving the arts into the overall brand of our destination. Through our relationship with the CVB, we can reduce redundancies and work in concert with their existing efforts, finding new opportunities for synergy between the CVB, the local arts agency, and the Film Commission. To that end, I would like to briefly call Katie Marvin, Senior Advertising Manager of the CVB. At the request of David Downing, she is going to address the next 4 slides.
Thank you, Mitzi.
You're welcome.
As Mitzi mentioned, my name is Katie Marvin. I'm the Senior Advertising Manager at Visit St. Pete Clearwater. Our Director, David Downing, is traveling today and asked me to join Mitzi real for a moment to share with you a very brief recap of what we've been doing to move the arts forward in Pinellas County with our cultural tourism program. Together with our advertising agency, we've put together a robust media plan for promoting the arts and culture over the past several years. And it goes way beyond that, as arts has become part of our overall brand, as you'll see in some of these examples. Our beach and culture map is one of our main collateral pieces. It's distributed at conferences, local events, Visit Florida Welcome Centers, AAA offices, chambers of commerce, airport information kiosks, and hotel and attraction brochure racks. On one side, it's got a map of the beaches, and the other side, a listing of cultural organizations. Our Gulf to Bay Destination magazine is our major collateral piece. We produced 600,000 magazines in 2015. It's distributed worldwide, and we also do inserts in the New York Times, Orlando Sentinel, Tampa Bay Times, Sarasota Herald Tribune, to key markets, and to household incomes that would be willing and able to travel. We'll also distribute at trade shows and conferences, as well as the Visit Florida Welcome Centers and airport information kiosks. As you can see in these examples, this is in hardwiring the beach with our arts and culture messaging. Inside our magazine, we talk about the murals, the galleries, the art walks, things to do. We have print advertisement. Our campaign is Live Amplified, and we've woven that in with our cultural tourism program, as we'll see in this example advertisement. We do advertising in Creative Loafing, Tampa Bay Times, the Sarasota Herald Tribune, among others. We have a very vast social media presence. As you can see, Facebook, 188,000 lifetime likes, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We just reached 5 million lifetime views. And we do a lot of promotion of the arts on our social media channels with special events, videos, and different things that are going on in the area. Our website, visitstpeakclearwater.com, receives over 1 million visitors annually worldwide. And on our website, we have a promotion of the arts and culture dedicated page called that we like to call radiantculture.com. And that's what our print advertising, all of our advertising directs to radiantculture.com, which is this page where we have information on articles and videos and trip ideas for visitors related to the arts, as well as arts and cultural listings that we encourage any business to be listed on our website. A radio and television. We also have our television spots that we rebranded last year feature arts and culture in them, and so perfect opportunity to show them is on PBS. We have our 30-second commercials airing on the BBC World News, PBS NewsHour, and prime time on such programs as Great Performances, American Masters, Live at the Met, Live from Lincoln Center, Antique Roadshow, and Masterpiece Theater. Our radio campaigns, you've probably heard them on NPR if you listen. We have 40 spots that rotate each week, Monday through Friday, promoting different events and cultural organizations in the St. Pete, Clearwater, Pinellas County area. There's great possibilities that exist with Creative Pinellas, and we're excited about what we've been doing and what more that we can be doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. We intend to call on the CVB to continue offering their guidance, their support, and expertise in development of our own programs. Leveraging these resources may enable us to free up some portions of our existing budget. They have already generously provided us with dedicated office space and equipment, and we are actively building a plan to nest content from articulatesuncoast.com, the Creative Pinellas arts marketing website, into radiantculture.com, the site that Katie just described, thus expanding our audience reach while also improving their content base by joining the two, making both stronger. In our public meetings throughout the county, again, under the heading of marketing, we also identify the desire for a scalable, collaborative marketing tools that county organizations, venues, and artists could customize to promote their own individual activities while also retaining a common countywide message to capture the attention of target markets through repetition. And we identified a concept to use existing county talent as artistic ambassadors, putting a face on our regional scene. I'll highlight some of our first-year goals, although our proposal does include 3 years, and allow for some questions, as I said, after. To continue building our partnership with the CVB in branding Pinellas County as a cultural destination, to develop an increasingly interactive and mobile-optimized arts marketing website, reaching interregional audiences as well as cultural tourists, working to cross-promote cultural initiatives at all levels, providing organizations, venues, and artists with the information and training they need to assist them in effectively leveraging marketing to expand their audiences and patron relationships, leveraging sponsorship visibility of the local arts agency as a countywide marketing opportunity, and fostering and supporting creative placemaking by providing guidance and resources to Pinellas County's cultural communities. So, what resources do we estimate requiring for these initiatives? We ask a total investment of not less than $150,000 for marketing and cultural brand growth, enabling us to increase resources and fees for our media manager role and administrative support, adding 1099 contractors as required to assist with these marketing and media initiatives, development and distribution of a collaborative marketing package also included, and the building of a sponsorship and outreach fund. Putting an artistic face on the Pinellas art scene and teaming with artists to reach out to patrons using artists as ambassadors of the arts will be a key element to our marketing efforts. Our second point, project funding and community engagement. For Creative Pinellas to broaden its role as a county resource and function as a more accessible hub of service, we must invest in growth for the arts. And investing in growth for the arts, it follows that the agency will grow in kind. We are currently scaled very small. I am the only full-time contractor working for Creative Pinellas. We have a part-time contractor who manages some media projects. He's here today. And we have individuals who are paid per content item to write and provide photographs and video content for our website. Enabling Creative Pinellas to move forward as a strong resource for leading and developing the county's creative industries and people, while expanding our ability to convene, coordinate, and communicate with these constituents, can put us on the path toward elevating this local arts agency to the national standard, as well as expanding into a full-service agency with the inclusion of competitive grant-making. Some of our Year 1 goals: establish open, countywide communication and networking to stimulate cultural and economic development, serve as a hub of information by maintaining cultural directories of artists, venues, organizations, public art, project funding opportunities, educational partners, and similar content. I feel it coming. Pardon me. Just couldn't shake it in time. Convening meetings throughout the county to encourage arts industry representatives to work collaboratively and identify key cross-marketing opportunities. Building stronger support of and partnerships with those in education, health, and minority industries and supporting their cultural endeavors. Building and convening with a Pinellas Arts Advisory Committee of cultural industry representatives who can offer guidance on Creative Pinellas initiatives. And beginning to develop and implement competitive grant-making opportunities. Drilling down into that concept just a bit, seed grants. We propose the creation of a countywide granting program for applicants living and working within Pinellas County to foster creative placemaking, support lifelong learning, and encourage the creation of innovative new projects by our artists. The program would bring more artists and performers into county venues and create a new pipeline for increasing educational exposure to cultural arts while also generating revenue and work opportunities for arts professionals. Awards in the amount of $1,500 to $3,500 are proposed to be used for materials, education, or equipment utilized in the creation of artwork, programs, or performances made broadly accessible to the public, at arts venues, events, schools, or community centers. For example, perhaps a new mural on a small community center, a week-long after-school arts theater workshop, culminating with a free public showcase. Who would be eligible? Artists based in Pinellas County with demonstrated excellence in their chosen media in order to develop publicly accessible projects. Pinellas County arts teachers and similar professionals to develop youth programs, as well as nonprofit arts and cultural organizations with educational departments or missions to develop public programs. We ask an investment of not less than $150,000 for project funding and community engagement, to contract administrative assistants and other 1099 personnel as necessary for program support, because I'm going to need some help. Providing for the local arts agency project supplies and materials as needed, and building the seed grants funding pool. In our timeline, we identify year 1 as a pilot program and recommend a commitment to an annual investment of not less than $300,000 from sources approved and determined by the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners, including tourist development tax, general revenue, specific sales tax, or combination. And the local arts agency will continue to explore and develop public-private partnerships. In year 2, we report on pilot program results and metrics and begin a countywide economic impact study on the outcomes of these cultural efforts. In year 3, we wish to begin new strategic planning sessions for Pinellas County arts and culture on a countywide scale. What I've done here is a small example that could be broadened. And the local arts agency will strengthen state-level advocacy in efforts to impose revenue sources at the local level. In conclusion, I want to say that the cultural arts in our county are moving in the right direction, and Creative Pinellas is ready and excited to take the next step into a brighter future. There's still much work to be done, and it's up to us to do it. There's an opportunity here and now to send a clear signal that Pinellas County strongly supports the arts. We hope the Commission will lead the way in helping formulate a balanced recipe for growth and success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi. Would you just give a short history for the newer members on how this started, Creative Pinellas, from how it was spun off from our Arts Council, and what year was that? I forget exactly. Was that 11 or 12?
It was 2011 when Creative Pinellas was founded. I believe it was at the end of 2010 when the Office of Pinellas County Cultural Affairs was removed from the county budget, and that office was closed. Mm-hmm. The county in 2011 provided $300,000 in seed funding to Creative Pinellas. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was $300,000. We still have approximately $270,000 of that. Our treasurer has invested as a sort of endowment. We received $35,000 approximately per year from the sales of the State of the Arts license plate. So that is our dedicated income. However, being that we've held on to so much of that principal, we operate at a monthly burn rate, so of approximately $4,000. So
but you have $270,000 of it left.
Only sustain for so long in this manner.
But $270 left.
250 to 270 is it moves depending on the market.
Okay.
We have a really good treasurer, and it was questioned. Why are you coming to the table to ask for funds if you still have so much left? My board has always taken the approach that they wanted to be conservative with the funding that we have and show that we could sustain for a time without burning right through it and having to come back and ask for more. So we've done the best we can to exist on a shoestring. I've received some criticism about this proposal in the effect that it may be perhaps too conservative, and I believe others here who will speak may suggest that we should ask for more. Certainly, more is needed. Our decision as a board in the target was to take a balanced approach in the hopes of gaining approval. However, should the commission find more and see fit to provide more, these initiatives can take place more quickly with stronger staff support and can be expanded upon. I hope that answered your question.
I want to say, you must be a mind reader because you just answered 3 of the questions that I had in my mind that I was going to ask you on different reasons why there was so much money left over and everything. Do you give?
I saw where that was going.
Yeah. Do you give a copy of your books to Mr. Woodard? Does he see that?
Does Terry Haas, our treasurer, provide you with those? No.
No.
I don't see that it would be a problem.
I think it would be.
Terry, our treasurer, deals directly on those items. It doesn't generally flow through me. But
Okay. I think it would be a good idea that if you can get a copy of your last financial report to Mr. Woodard, because I'm sure we all have some questions on that.
And to the point also of additional revenue streams, we do make efforts to solicit grants at the state level.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I was just on a call for one this morning, and it's a project grant, so the maximum amount that we could receive was $2,500. I'm happy to say that we did receive it.
Oh, great.
And last year, we received a $19,000 grant from the State Division of Cultural Affairs. That's an operational grant. We're due to submit one of those next month for generally the same amount. So making those efforts, but it's kind of drips and drops in terms of leading up to the scale at which we need to exist.
Do you do the grants, or someone else do the grant writing?
I wrote the one that was approved today. That is the first grant that I've penned from start to finish. Mm-hmm. I had worked on portions of them previously. The $19,000 grant that we received last year was written by my predecessor, who resigned at the end of 2013. So I've been director of this organization since approximately March of 2014.
Okay. All right, thank you. You answered all my questions. Questions from the board? Yes, Commissioner Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mitzi, you mentioned an arts advisory board on one of the slides.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see that happening? Is it using existing boards, or are you talking about a new advisory board?
I would like to draw a new group together, starting with those who contributed in the process to build this proposal. We would want to keep it a manageable size, but bringing in representatives from organizations, bringing in working artists, bringing in people in arts education, so that we get a good cross-section of not only geographically people working in the arts in different portions of the county, but also through the different arts industries. So we have a good place to start, as I say. There's a mailing list that's been built from the public input sessions that were held in the development of this proposal, and I'd like to bring those people together and get a commitment to create a small group that could advise us.
Okay. And that's not contingent upon funding?
It is not. No, that's
going to happen.
Certainly something that we intend to do.
What's your timetable for that?
Within this year, certainly.
Well, it's May.
I know, it is, yeah. I also, there's a lot to do.
So I think that kind of input
by the fall, I think we should be able to begin meeting.
Okay. On your slide, looks like slide 17, I'm not sure how the numbering works, but you had the $150,000 for project funding and community engagement.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that are you recommending for the seed grant?
That's something that needs to be discussed with my board. But my recommendation personally is as much as possible. It has to be balanced out against the operational needs of our organization, because in order to support some of our community engagement programs, I need to find ways to bring on additional contractors, be they project-based or on a longer contract basis, to support me in some of these endeavors, take care of some of the administrative tasks, share some of the weight of some of the media tasks that I'm still conducting by virtue of the fact that our media manager is only part-time. So
that's the half FTE?
That's correct.
I've never seen a half a person, and you said he was here,
Yeah.
so where is he?
Stand up.
Okay. Looks like a full person. Okay. But
He's more than a full person.
absolutely. But, the arts is central, and the fact that we only have 1.5 people, I think, is something we need to address. But I do want to say that going back to when the county made this decision, it's good to say that, to remind us where we were. I mean, we were cutting thousands of jobs. We're still at a 1980s level of funding or employment for the county. So we were making some real tough decisions. And I think this was our best effort to try to, balance the county's budget, but at the same time give the arts some funding and a path forward. But I think it's obvious that we need to relook at that and reinvest, because it is very important. I'll have some questions later on after we hear public comments. That's all I have for now.
Great. Well, to your point, if the commission were able to provide in excess of our ask, it would go into this element, project funding and community engagement, because we have a lot of marketing resources that we can already leverage from the CVB. So any additional funds would enable us to, again, focus on increasing our contract support and potentially funneling more into that seed grants program.
Okay. Well, you brought one other thing to mind, Mr. Chairman. Have you quantified the current TDC support?
Not
website, office space?
We have not. No. That's something that I need to work with my treasurer on.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Eggers?
Well, first of all, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for spending some time with me last week or earlier this week or whatever. I just, from my perspective, the more we learn about your program and the actual expenditure of the $300,000 that you're talking about, the more comforting it would be to me. And hearing that you still have money from 4 years ago and how that was intended to be spent and wasn't spent, and I, still not clear on all that, but I'd certainly like to understand, because that certainly sounds like almost what you're asking for this year. I'd like to know more about what the intention was and why, perhaps it wasn't, but then also a little bit more about the plan, the specifics. But and then to your point, one of the points you brought up were expanding the arts educational access for the underserved. Apologize. Could I start over? Now, I'll just say quickly that I was a little bit concerned about the $300,000 that was originally given 4 years ago and how it hasn't been spent, what it was supposed to be spent for, number one. And then number two, what the specifics of the $300,000 ask are. I mean, I got the categories, but maybe a little bit more on that. And maybe even to some of this where you talk about expanding the arts, educational access for the undeserved, including children, elderly, disabled. Like the
underserved.
Underserved.
What did I say? Undeserved? Underserved. That's what I wrote. Underserved.
Transposition of consonants.
Including children, elderly, and those with special needs. Just like to know a little bit more about that program too. Don't need to do it now, but I just would like to know a little bit more.
Just to address in general some of your questions, and again, my treasurer would speak to this more in depth, but my understanding through our conversations is that our initial principle was invested in such a way to enable us to sustain as long as we have. We are losing money every month, but had we utilized that principle as spending capital, I wouldn't be here before you right now. The agency would have petered out within a few years. So he's enabled us to sustain for this long, even though we exist at this deficit, through careful and conservative investment of those funds. And in regard to the proposal itself, knowing that this was a work session, that there were going to be a lot of questions and things that needed to be shaped coming out of this, I intentionally kept it more conceptual rather than to bring in line item budgets as others have, because here we are starting from zero. So we're looking to receive some feedback from the commission as well and help in shaping through the next steps.
Okay, that's the area I'd like to hear more about.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gerard?
Yeah. I want to thank you for not expending all that money that we gave you 3 years ago.
Thank
It
my
sounds like
treasurer.
also there was some period there where there weren't any staff, or at least there wasn't a director there, so that makes sense. And I think it's a good idea to invest it and live off the proceeds. When you talked about the advisory committee, do you see that group, how big do you see that group being, for one thing?
I think it needs to be kept manageable, 25, thereabouts. It's hard to say. There's so many in this
And there are
industry
many
that
people
have
that want to be involved.
great
I know that.
experience and a strong voice.
And do
but-
you see them doing the work that you talked about here on this, the new strategic plan, if you will, or cultural plan? I didn't realize that our cultural plan was that old, but
it's been 10 years.
Certainly it needs a redo.
Yes, I would intend to draw upon that group for advice on a number of different initiatives, including that.
And that would start within the next year, within the first year?
Yeah, within, I would say, the next quarter, reasonably. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I guess in that process, I know there's a lot of detail you could have in here, but in that process, would you be the one leading that effort, or would you bring somebody in to help with that?
Leading the effort to
do a cultural plan or a strategic plan?
We would intend to contract a professional agency to assist in that.
That would be
this was developed, obviously, by me, and with the help of volunteers, and obviously with the input of many people, but a true comprehensive cultural plan. We would intend to work with some strategic planning agencies on that, perhaps collaborative labs or similar.
That would be my first preference, but okay.
That's the only one I know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I know.
So research needing to be done. And the advisory group also would assist in the planning, development, and implementation of the seed grants program, we would hope. Or there would perhaps be a splinter committee that could serve in that capacity, much as the Arts Advisory Committee in St. Petersburg has reworked their recent arts grants application.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. The other thing I had was to echo Commissioner Eggers' concern about the squishiness of that 150 that goes to community engagement and seed. I would really like to see a solid number, and I'm pretty sure the community would like to see a solid number that goes to seed grants.
Agreed. I mean, much depends on the decision of the commission
and not so
in terms
much
of
a moving target.
Right. It much depends on your decision in terms of how much we receive, and then taking that and returning to my board and having the discussion of how we can then begin to break up that allocation.
And I'm one of the ones that had wished you came in with telling us what you're going to do in the next 2 years, or the second and third year on a grander scale, but that's okay. I think I would want to make sure that wasn't a slippery slope to be doing. I mean, frankly, and I know you've heard this, what I've heard so far about Creative Pinellas is we don't need a website. I mean, it's not, we're just paying for a website. So I think we have to do some very concrete things that support artists, and I support what you're doing, I understand what you're doing, but we have to do concrete things that help artists and arts organizations. And I think that's an important component. Otherwise, you're not going to have the support that you need to get anything done.
Yes, I definitely agree, and that is our aim in referencing community engagement. We want to move more away from a project-based agency and more toward a service-based agency, providing for the needs of those.
Right. And I love that you're partnering with the Visitors Bureau. That's great.
We're very fortunate.
I know that's very helpful to you as well. That's all.
Okay. Commissioner Justice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to hear, thank you for being here today. I do want to hear more about what Commissioner Eggers was talking about when you mentioned the underserved, but deserved, of the children elderly, disabled, culturally and geographically underserved, and what you kind of mean by that as we start to flesh out this plan. But really, when we're talking about numbers, and I get very frustrated because we see the chart, and you brought it up, of what Hillsborough spends, and Hillsborough has twice the budget we do. You know, they have a twice the budget, $2 billion more than we do. So it's not an apples to apples comparison on budget. And when we talk about it, we don't hear about what we are spending currently in the CVB as far as marketing and again, the services that they're providing for your organization. But also never has mentioned the $500,000 that we're going to start spending this year for the next 5 years on the Dolly. So I agree we 100% need to do a lot more than we're doing now, but I hate it when you're not doing anything for art or culture in the community, and there's millions of dollars being expended, and so we just need an apples-to-apples comparison when we start talking these charts and budgets and numbers and things. So
I appreciate that.
Okay. Commissioner Long?
Well, I have so many questions and so many comments, I don't even know where to begin. And I am right on the same page as Commissioner Justice. I think there's an awful lot of holes in this presentation and a lot of data that you have yet, and I know you've worked really hard, Mitzi, on putting this together. I'm just not sure that you've covered all of your bases in terms of giving us the information that we need to make a really thoughtful and deliberate decision. Now, I've served on the commission. This is my third year, and for 3 years in a row, I have really worked hard to wrap my head around what is Creative Pinellas. And I think when you and I met, I shared with you, I don't get it. I don't get how it helps our kids. I don't get how it helps our elderly. I don't get how it helps me feel touchy-feely arts in the community. And maybe it's generational. I don't know. But I do know that when you're talking about public dollars, which I'm thinking that $300,000 is, that's been sitting in that trust fund or whatever it is set aside, is that from general revenue, Mark? That $300,000 that was given to them?
That was, yes, those were monies that had previously been allocated to the Cultural Affairs Department.
So while I agree with Commissioner Gerard that you've, tried to use the monies in a very conservative way, they're not really your money. It belongs to our taxpayers. And it seems to me that either we have a robust, vibrant arts program and cultural affairs program for Pinellas County, or we don't. And to that point, I just want to share for a moment my own personal interaction with the old Pinellas County Arts Council. I was involved with a school that was building a performing arts center, and we used that arts council as a resource and a guide in terms of how to best build this facility, how to put the cultural programs in there that would make it an exemplary place to learn. And it was invaluable what they shared with us. And one of the things that I learned through that exercise is you can learn a lot about the values of a community by the effort that they put into the arts. And if you look at civilizations, the ones that thrived and were the most robust were those that really emphasized the arts, like the Greeks, like the Romans, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, it's a little sad that that kind of fell off the radar from a county perspective, considering how big we are and how many people we have here. And so I am all about putting money into this program to make it robust and to make it vibrant. But I would like to, as Commissioner Justice, I think, said, I would like to see a comparison of other markets that are similar to ours and what they're doing and how they're moving forward. I've learned a lot about what's going on just within the south part of our county with the city of St. Petersburg. They're investing pretty heavily in their cultural affairs department. And I think we have a long way to go, and I'm looking forward most of all to hearing from the people that are sitting here today, and then I'll probably have a lot more questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
I agree. And in general, in response to your comments, I don't think it's a generational thing or that you're wrong necessarily in saying that as others have said, that it seems you have a one person and a website. It's not enough. It hasn't been enough, and that's why I'm here today making this proposal. Because we need to grow, we need to provide those kinds of services, we need to help build those opportunities, we need to be connecting with the educational, people working in arts education, and offer the types of programming and services that you're referencing. I did not create this agency. I inherited it.
You inherited it.
And
I feel bad.
We're still in our infancy in many ways. It's been slow growth because we've been working with this limited resource and operating in a deficit. But we have an opportunity here to take steps into a new era. And this is a new day. We're looking forward while we're learning from all of the lessons of the past. And I think we have an opportunity to become exactly what it is that you're describing.
So I have a follow-up based on what you just said. Did I miss it, or do you have in here a budget for how you want to spend this $300,000, and how much is going to go for administrative staff, and how much is going to go for all the different line items that you're talking about in a program that you're trying to create?
We did not provide a line item budget for you today.
Are you going to be able to do that?
Yes.
At some point?
It's determined based on having a clearer picture of what we may receive. In my process of creating this proposal, which began back in October when I came before the commission, and essentially the message that I received was the commission was open to potentially reinstating some arts funding, but they wanted to know how it would be spent. So go forth and create a proposal. The target was stated to me at that time to be approximately $500,000 to $600,000. By the time March came around, that target had shifted somewhat to a smaller number. By the time April came around, again, the target had shifted somewhat to even smaller numbers based on conversations that I had with community members as well as commissioners. And so in light of that, I chose to create a proposal that focused on the concepts we want to achieve, the resources at the basic level that we feel that we need in order to achieve those, have the commission assist in determining the funding sources and the degree at which funding may be made available. And then once we know what we're working with, we can drill down into the line items. At least that's how this was generated. I understand your request, and certainly it's something that we can do if my target is made clear.
And other people.
Well, you asked me if I had questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm only 1 out of 7 here, but it seems to me that's a little backward, because what I would be looking for is a vision of what you need and what you think it takes to put this, or all of the people collectively, to put this plan in place and make it really meaningful. And so without that vision and without that budget, I mean, I think it would be irresponsible to just say, okay, we'll give you $300,000 or $400,000 or maybe $500,000, and then you tell us how you're going to use it.
Well, we've attempted to describe our vision here today.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gerard.
I just have one more question. The thing about your IRS status, that 501c4, has there been any talk about trying to change that, or?
I've addressed that with my board on a few occasions. Unfortunately, have not been able to move forward in changing the designation. There hasn't been a consensus on the efficacy of that decision. So I do believe that we're leaving some money on the table. I'm unable to really make efforts to draw on corporate sources and others that might be available to a C3.
How many people do you have on your board?
We have 10. One is ex officio, Commissioner Seal.
All done.
So there's no, well, okay. I think that's important. That, I'm not sure what the board's
agree, and others on my board do as well.
I think the commission also wants to know that we're not the sole source of your funding. So
absolutely,
if you could be writing grants or bigger grants to NEA and such, that would be helpful.
Going back to the inception of Creative Pinellas, I think and I can only speak of what I've heard, they didn't they specifically set it up as a 501c4 not to compete against the other arts organizations because at that time money was so tight that they felt that it would be difficult to go after competing funding. And so, whether now's the right time to add a C3, it might be, because the economy is obviously better and things are going much better for everyone. I kind of just also want to remind the commission, if you Google the Pinellas County Arts Council, you will find the cultural plan from 2005. Might be worth your time to take a look at that. At that time, they had a budget of over $900,000, and they had 10 staff. Today, I'm basically on a budget of maybe $80,000 a year. They have one person, and she does it all. And it's a lot, and a lot to be able to cover. And like she mentioned, they were trying to do more program and more promotion, but now they go, and it was a definite departure from the old Arts Council, because the old Arts Council, if you look and see what they did a lot of grant funding. That was a lot in public art. That was pretty much their function. They also did a cultural directory, which she's proposing to bring back again, and calendar. And so I think in some ways we're returning back to some of the roots of what the old Arts Council did. And I think we do need to be very careful as we embark on that. And I'd be happy to work with the board and have a specific budget for you. I did put it in my decision package request that I submitted to Mark, the general dollar amounts, but no specific source. I'm personally favorably inclined towards, seeing what we could persuade the Convention and Visitors Bureau as to what kind of funding they could offer to support this effort.
And next Wednesday is our TDC budget hearing. Next Wednesday.
Budget meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're meeting down at the TDC building.
If you're really going to make an impact, you can't do it on a shoestring. Thank you.
Yeah. Mitzi, a couple of things. You're following all these other presenters that everything was by a line item. And I totally understand why you came in with this general picture. But I think this is where some of the angst is that people aren't seeing exactly where that 150 is going to be going. So the other thing, I agree with Commissioner Long about utilizing some of that $300,000. I don't think you ought to use all of it, but I think that was collected in good faith to be used for the arts and not just sitting there in a interest-bearing account. I'd like you to use some of that. And when you come back to us, because this is such a general presentation, Mark, that I think we almost have to come back with Mitzi to look at her budget when she comes back to us, like we did these other presentations, so we can discuss it and see exactly where that money is going.
And again, let me just...
Sure, go ahead. And now, what do you say?
I think today we wanted to get a general feeling whether you thought we were going in the right direction. And then, like I said, we can come back with a specific line item budget, but we didn't know whether you all would be supporting adding additional personnel, whether, you wanted to do the grant program.
Well, let's hear, we're not done hearing from everybody yet before we make those decisions.
This proposal was vetted by the members of my board, members of the community. I discussed with Mr. Woodard what my target should be or how I would best approach that. So that's how we came to this point. And I know time in that process was it suggested to me that I needed to create a line item budget at this stage, knowing that, of course, one was going to be required at some stage.
Well, we're in the budget hearing process, and there's only one more meeting next Tuesday. That's an actual budget hearing, but I don't believe that you can have that ready by next Tuesday. Mark?
I think, Commissioners, the intent was to follow on to Commissioner Seal's comments to get a temperature check from the board as to the degree to which the board is supportive of funding arts and at what level of magnitude. I would like to put a couple of things on on the display just to speak to some of the questions that came up previously. Back in October of last year, the staff provided the board with a presentation on the arts, and what you see before you now is from that presentation. And
hold on, Mark. Can you please focus in on that?
Not your eyes. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's better. All right, go ahead, Mark.
So you can see from this shows the history of funding for the arts going back to 2002, and it shows the various funds from which those dollars were appropriated. And one can see that as we went into the period 2006 or so, the amounts of funding for arts increased. That trend continued certainly from the general fund through 2010 and into 2011, as you can see from this. In 2013, you can see the $300,000 from the general fund. That was essentially taking the monies that were on deposit, if you will, from the former Cultural Arts Department and conveying those over to the new local arts agency, Creative Pinellas. I don't want to speak for the members of the Creative Pinellas Board, but as I understood it, this new local arts agency platform was really established in reaction to the realities of the Great Recession. Commissioner Welch pointed out earlier that the average county department took a 35% cut. Some departments, like our Parks Department, took a 50% cut during that period of the Great Recession. Our staffing level today is equivalent to what it was in 1987. And so one of the areas that took an even larger disproportionate hit was the arts. So this new platform that was based upon Google Juice and websites and collaboration with our partners was really birthed, and it was intended to be sustainable. So to that point, I applaud the efforts of Creative Pinellas and their treasurer to very cautiously and conservatively invest those funds and draw them down, and couple that with the $35,000 or so that comes from the sale of the arts license plates, along with other revenues. So again, this kind of tells the picture of our funding situation for the arts in Pinellas County, and I'll redistribute this entire presentation to the full board. I should have thought to have done that in advance of today's presentation. So the next slide, this speaks to, if you could back out on that, please. This speaks to a point I believe that Commissioner Justice raised earlier, and that is, well, how do we really compare to the other urban counties? And as you can see, for the current fiscal year, 2015, we're at about $732,000, all of which comes from the tourist development tax. That's the lowest amount, with Hillsborough County being higher at $1.3 million. But one has to consider that these amounts only reflect the funding from the county. They don't reflect the funding that might be coming from the various municipalities in support of the arts. And as the board knows, while about 30% of the population in Pinellas County is unincorporated, 70% is incorporated, and it's just the opposite in Hillsborough County, where the bulk of their population lies in the unincorporated area. So if you consider that gap between Hillsborough's $1.3 million and our $732,000 would necessarily shrink. Now, I'm not going to represent by what amount it would shrink. I don't know, but intuitively it would shrink. So, again, I wanted to share these two graphics with you to kind of put this discussion into the broader context. You know, back to Mitzi's presentation, I had counseled her that for the purpose of her presentation today, keeping it a little more conceptual would be more helpful, because to come in at this point with specific line item budgets wouldn't provide the board with the opportunity to scale those programs up or down, because depending upon the amount of monies that are ultimately allocated, the line item detail behind that is going to be very different at $150,000 versus $50,000 versus $350,000. So again, that guidance came from me to Mitzi.
And that's fine, but it's like we're going to have her come back and do a line item presentation for us.
And so I think to that point, Commissioners, if today the board is willing or able to get to a point to give some idea as to the level of funding and for what purpose, Mitzi has kind of laid out two general program areas, one of which could be funded from, likely could be funded from the tourist development bed tax without the need for general revenue. The other would likely require funding from general revenue because of the nature of the expenditures. So if there could be some guidance on that point, as we go forward in the budget process, we will be laying out all of the competing needs, and they certainly go far beyond the arts and culture. We can lay those out, get additional detail from Mitzi and our other partners and our other agencies and departments, and then we bring that back to the board a little bit later in the budget process so you can make some deliberate and make decisions on the actual allocation to various priority areas.
And after next Wednesday, I'll have a better idea as the TDC has their budget discussion, whether or not it's going to stay at 731 or not. And then I'd be wondering if they continue to fund it at that level, will that affect the amount of money that we're going to appropriate here, should we decide to do that?
Well, the $732,000 you see here, Commissioners, does not include the commitment to the DALI, which is an additional $500,000 that starts next fiscal year. Fortunately, we have seen very heady growth in our bed tax collections. And, I think that when you deliberate with the TDC later in the month, you could probably get a better idea as to whether those additional bed tax monies can cover all of the existing as well as some of the additional needs.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for laying that out. Commissioner Gerard?
I just had one question about this. The tourist development tax money is money that's spent by the Tourist Development Council to promote arts. It doesn't go to Creative Pinellas other than to support office space.
That's this number probably does not include those in-kind services that we're currently providing. But yes, these are monies that are spent by our Convention and Visitors Bureau in support of cultural arts.
Okay. Well, why don't you take a little break and we'll start recognizing the public. Thank you. Before I recognize all of these folks on the green card, I'd like to recognize our former colleague, Susan Latvala, who's in the audience. Susan, nice to see you.